Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Isn't music good for the soul? So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. How is everyone this week? Here we go. Anyone want to share? Take the mic. How was your week? Anyone has testimony? Any news for yourself? Anyone would like to share? Hi, Sandra. You're great, are you? Fantastic. We always like to start Sundays to see, how our being, and always love to hear any stories in regards to testimonies, any wonderful, ugly, awful, any news in yourself in this growth of transformation. Particularly today's topic, what Warren's talking about is the kingdom within. And what does the kingdom within mean for you? So let's hear it from everyone. Let's create this platform as your voice. Obviously, everyone's going through their learning, their journeys, and it's just wonderful to glean on one another, our experience.
Morning, Grace.
Hello,
Christine here.
First of all, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Christine. Yay. Hey.
Happy birthday, Christine.
Happy birthday.
Thanks very much. I was hoping everybody would forget, but that's probably not happening.
Happy Earth Day.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy dear Christine. Happy birthday to you.
Beep, beep.
Well,
Hooray.
I hope that didn't put you off, Sandra. Sandra's first time today.
thank you very much, everyone. Well, I was going to share that it's been an amazing week for me. And so I guess what Warren is talking about, the power of your subconscious mind, is just so powerful. But for me this week, I think the biggest thing that happened to me was that I learned to speak my truth. And I was basically forced into it because, for those who don't know, that if you hold on to things and you're nice all the time and you don't speak your truth, the pain comes out in your physical body. Well, it did in mine, and I actually was in so much pain that I actually spoke it out, and the pain's pretty much gone. And I've reflected a lot on that, and I've also reflected a lot on the fact that we've been talking about our ego and the war within us with our ego, and it's just, I've learnt to feel it, and it's been really amazing because I question everything now. It's been a really incredible week.
Whoa. Someone's doing breakfast there in your house, Warren.
Actually, Grace, can we just ask everyone to mute themselves until they come on, because we are getting a bit of feedback through. So if you could just check your microphone's muted, please, and unless you're going to speak.
Thanks, guys. I know it was such a big week for you, Christine. Keep going. This is really good. I mean, we all talk about ego. We'll talk about all the external stuff. What does it really mean in discerning the differences in the voices, the dialogue in our minds? And how can you tell it is your ego?
Well, that's been a really good question. I think probably it started last week when I had this revelation about my whole life is a big story. We went fairly deep, and I just suddenly realised that all the things I do, I've made them up, really. And then I had the... I'm getting a bit of feedback there from someone.
Hey, guys.
And then I had that experience of so much pain and not speaking my truth. And then I realized that, well, I'll go back a bit. It's hard to really describe it, Grace, because in that allowing of myself to speak my truth, there was still something going on for me. There was a hardness there in me, and like letting go of what it was I had to say out. And I could just feel that tension in my mind of wanting to hold on to things that didn't feel good, but wanting to hold on to them. And it's like this tension, really, and you don't really know what it is. But I was fortunate that I was in a circumstance that I was in a safe enough space to be able to hold that and feel it. And then I woke up this morning and I felt that tension again. And all of a sudden I realized that's what it was. So basically it was all these thoughts that go around in your mind, questioning everything that you do. So it's your ego trying to make excuses or blame you or this or that or the other thing. And it doesn't serve you. And so yesterday I had the experience, and you were there too, of someone who was struggling to read a passage out in front of people. She was in total tears because her ego was telling her that she couldn't do it. And she kept persevering, and all of a sudden she could just read it. Oh, wow. All of a sudden she let go of that feeling of, I can't do it. And it's the same for me. I've realized that my ego tells me, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you're not good enough, or whatever it is. And so it's sort of like all the things that constrict you, keep you trapped in this sort of mental cage, I guess it is. You can just feel the tension. I can just feel the tension. Yeah, so that's what it's been like for me.
Yeah. Well, we've heard that everything is energy, and if everything is energy, everything has consciousness, doesn't it?
You can feel it.
So what we're about here on Sunday, so the first hour, what we hear about is to really open up our hearts, because all of us are in this 3D and our communication is words. We dialogue, we communicate with one another through words, as well as releasing and clearing our blockages. We use words. And so this is a fantastic platform, and I invite everyone to really share for the first hour, because we glean from it. As Christine was speaking this morning, look in the mirror. For those who've done mirror work, look at the mirror, what Christine has shared this morning. Where is that in you? And as Steve explained a few weeks back in that weekend, is the seer, the seeing, and the seen are one and the same. So where is that in you? Because we're all made of the same stuff. All of us here are made of the same stuff. We all have the same traits. We all go through similar. I mean, the only difference is what we've experienced in life. And as we uncover together the mysteries of what ego, spirit, self, higher self means, this is where I encourage everyone to really share. I mean, there is no right or wrong answer. You don't have to formulate the words perfectly. Actually, the better you stutter, it's an encouragement, because then you're being raw and open to your weakness. And we can do something about it rather than going into a fight-flight mode. And we're here to really share, because again, we're here to glean from one another. We've been so taught. Everybody's teaching us. There's so many gurus out there, isn't there? There's so many books, self-help books. I mean, really, self-help books. What does that mean? If you're reading a self-help books, are you actually helping yourself? or you're seeking for help outside of yourself. So I love what you shared, Christine, because I know it was deeper than that, what you're sharing. So you certainly went through your hell, shall we say, with your physical. And where is that in you guys? Where's the physical ailments or pain you went through this week? Because we're all addicted to pleasure, and we avoid pain. And pain is a wonderful chemistry to let us know, hey, check this out. Have a look at this. Go internal, go in yourself, because we're all here to have that journey of transformation. And what does it really mean? You've heard Warren doing webinar after webinar. He's talking about sovereignty, legal rights, common law, and what's going on in our society, all the backs and jabs, everything. What does it mean? So again, encouraging everyone to voice here, and how can we unravel it? How can we bring it and collapse it and create ourselves a quantum leap in ourselves? So it's only by sharing and what we've gone through. So stay there, Christine. I like looking at your lovely face, especially it's your birthday today. I appreciate others putting the camera. Thank you, Natasha, so I can see you guys. I'm very visual. I'm a visual person. So Tasha says, anticipating the truck revolts, I have to be honest and share that I'm tossing up what to do about that, but not worry about it since it may go on for a few weeks. We also live in a physical world as well as the spirit world. Be prepared for whatever. It's true, because we're here, we have a terrestrial body and we have a celestial body, and we choose to live accordingly to how we want it, how we want to be. So if we want to be terrestrial, then we get caught up in the external world, what's happening, all these different rallies coming up in Australia. So Warren's talking about today about the kingdom of heaven, inviting you to go more inward. So all these rallies around, where is that in you? Where are you not content and frustrated? Everything that's going through emotionally, where is that in you? So really have a look at that. Really encourage you to go inside. All the sages say is inward journey. This is about inward journey. It's not about the external, because again, the external is just a reflection of what's going on with what's happening with the collective, as well as what's happening in yourself. The trucks stop bringing food to us. But when you look at it in reality, Tash, is it happening right now? So what does it mean being living in the moment, living in the power of now? And if we are manifestors, if we know how to manifest things, how can we change that? How can we change the energy?
Okay, so they're going to be stopping all the food supply, and I'm talking about preparing our physical body for that. But not to worry about it, but actually we do need to prepare to ensure we do have a food supply. We haven't had this happen for like 40 years. I think they did that 40 years ago. And they're trying to force a change. And we've all heard about that, haven't we? About the trucks blocking all the highways.
Is it happening now?
It is affecting us in Queensland right now. Many of the market suppliers that I go to, because I go to chemical-free foods and shop for on weekends, they're not available. There is massive food shortage right now if you don't get there early enough. Like this morning, I got there and all the celery is gone, for example. So these things are actually happening now. I do live in a real world, and it's not about fear, but we also need to know how to mitigate what's going on. So I'm just looking for some solutions. We need to prepare, but not worry. If we're prepared, we don't have to worry. It's just like a martial artist knows how to fight, they probably never have to fight.
Sure. And what's your suggestion?
Well, basically, I'm preparing as much as I can.
And what's your
We have
preparation?
never had a situation like this before. So with the turmoil that's going on in Australia in particular, it's very severe on the East Coast. And I've also dealt with people who, you know, there was a young boy who was about to commit suicide. So fortunately, I spoke to his father, got the boy's phone number because he's with his mother. There's a lot of stuff going on, so I'm helping people in that area as well. So there's a reality going on, you know. In all
I get that, but are you infinite being, Tasha? Do you believe you're infinite being?
I know that. I do that with my work.
Okay, so if that's the word,
it's the physical side that's going on. So how do we deal with that to prepare physically to ensure we do have this food supply? We've had empty shelves before. Just gone to the health shop. There's so much they've ordered that hasn't arrived. So it is our reality.
So what stops you from going onto Facebook and creating a community? Hey guys, who's doing food? Who's growing food in the backyard? Who's growing this?
I'm doing that at the moment. I'm just throwing this out today as well, because it takes time to build things up. Yes, and to get the right people to listen, because people don't. Right now, there's a lot of reaction going on unless you actually
exactly. So do we react? Do we react, or do we act and find a solution?
That's what I'm talking about. I don't react. You suggested finding a community. I'm saying it takes time to find a community where people are not reacting, because people are in a position that has never been before.
Well,
not in the current lifetime. Look, I came from China and Russian parents, and I'll go back on history, and we need to make sure that we're listening, because in China, they're murdering people by withholding food. So they are talking about withholding food. So I would really like to, you know, cover that as without the fear and without this, you know, in my spiritual being. I work with spirit. I actually have spiritual beings work with me who physically touch my client. So I'm just going to that level to get, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up.
Not at all. It's a great topic, because that's what we're living in now. But as Warren says, there is nothing new under the sun. Empires have come up and it's been destroyed. The Roman Empire, they never knew, they thought they were going to exist forever, but it came crumbling down. So if we look at the history of humanity, there's been a destruction and there's been building. There's nothing new under the sun. And so, I mean, really, we know what's going to happen. So how do we place? It's like risk management. When you go into business,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So it's all of us here, those who are in Queensland and close to you. Well, you guys can create your community like we're doing here in Perth. So we're creating our community, and it's like, okay, guys, this is what's happening. What can one do? Each one of us, how can we put a management around us? It's a great topic.
What are you doing, Grace, with your situation? How have you prepared?
Well, Christine is a farmer. So she grows food.
Yeah.
And there's a few farmers we know in Perth. So we know that we can always go to them. If things hit the fan, we know we've got a place to go.
Yeah.
Now, I'd be a disaster because I'm not a natural gardener. Every time I try to grow something, it dies on me. And so I know my weakness and my strength. So, yeah, gathering around ourselves, who does what, and build that relationship with each other and have that openness and having an authentic relationship. So this is what I can do, Christine. How can you help me? And we're helping one another. So that's what we're creating in Perth.
Anyone else created? Anyone else on the call today have any backup with groups?
And the biggest thing I'd encourage is our really inward work. And that's what we really, we do, like Christine and I basically work every day together, and we do an inward journey. What's the fear? What's captivating our mind, our thoughts? Really capturing our thoughts, capturing our emotions, so that we don't react and we really act on it. And everything around us, the media, they're having a field time of all of us through all forms of media, radio. And even if you don't watch the media, it's impacting us energetically. And so it's pertinent today with Warren's message, actually, go inward, absolutely go inward, because all these things in the external, in the extrinsic, it's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen, it won't affect us internally. And if it does affect externally, then because we're such a inner peace, the solution will be there for us. As I love that Tao Te Ching. Tao says, do nothing and everything will be completed for you, be done for you. What does it really mean? It does your head in reading that verse. Do nothing and everything will be done for you.
Grace, could I just make a comment there about allowing that do nothing and everything will be done for you? It sounds amazing, but really I could say that this week has been totally orchestrated for me by the universe. It's been mind-blowing, extremely painful, and all those things. But it was just like I had no control. I just let it happen, and it was. It's taken me to a different place of understanding. And I feel that I'm much stronger for it. And so if I keep doing this work, if these things come about me, I will be in a better place to deal with it. That's what I feel.
And if we are esoteric people, if you look at the metaphor, of food, for example, what food is, what feeds us. Hang on a sec, let me just sort this out. Yeah, for example, if we break it down metaphorically, what is food? It's what sustains us, what feeds us, what keeps us our energy going. So it's a great topic, Tash, what you've brought up, because food again is what's our sustenance, what keeps us going, what keeps our energy, what keeps us inspired. So if we look at that, if you really break it down and collapse it, where's the lack in us? So if you look at the opposite in that, okay, sure, if the food is going to be cut and it's going to be stopped in certain areas, then let's break it down first. Right now, it's not happening. It might be slowly going off the shelf, but right now, how can we move it energetically? If everything is energy and we can shift that, how do we shift that? So let's have a look at, with the lack of it. So Christine, since your face is here, again, metaphorically, where, if you look at that with the food, how do you see yourself? Where's the lack in you in regards to what's feeding your spirit, what causes you to keep going?
Oh, that's a really difficult question, Grace.
Well, Steve, how about your buddy here?
Steve's got the answers usually.
He's been partying, Steve, last night, so he's probably a bit slower this morning.
100%. Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question. One thing I wanted to share, and it may or may not be helpful, on my men's group on Tuesday night, one of the things that we do each week is we make a commitment to making some change in our life in the week, and a couple of guys didn't do it. And one of the things I said was, look, awareness is great, but awareness is not change. What awareness does is it gives you options, because when we change internally, then it's easier to change things in the physical world. And just having awareness of that doesn't actually bring about change. You know, action needs to take place. So awareness gives us options, and that option is just to continue on the way we've always done things. That's to be drawn in to the fear that's going on now. That's to be you know, well, gee, I'm not getting great results in my life with that, either emotionally or physically. So I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. And I think that means different things for each person. And you know, I reflect on all of the change that's gone on in my life internally, and it can be a real bitch of a thing, change. You know, sometimes it can happen instantly and overnight, but my experience is that most of the time it's a gradual process. And, you know, so, and you fall off the wagon and you get back on, and, you know, you look back after a XYZ event and go, oh, gee, I was exactly the same as I was a year ago or 2 years ago. And so my point with that was that, you know, doing a lot of internal work is really good, and coming to days like this is really good. But how much of that awareness are we actually putting into practice? And so awareness gives us options. Awareness is not changing in and of itself. And just on a really practical level, you know, we've got a stockpile of food. Now, if the trucks do stop, we mightn't be eating gourmet food for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but we're not going to go hungry either. So the action was to make sure we've got enough supplies to get by. And even Warren said, you know, you can live up to 60 days without food. Well, I don't intend to do that. So you know, the internal freedom has led to, you know, we've also got some cash on hand just in case it's needed. So we have taken action in the physical world as well in that eventuality. Yeah, right, Warren. On day 45, let's have a conversation and see how you're going with your big fast. But yeah, that was I just felt it was a really important point to make, Grace, in that it may not go directly to your question, but awareness is only part of the equation for us as we shift internally and we shift externally. You know, we've got to take the option of enacting that change once we've got that awareness.
Totally. I mean, Tash said, I'm talking about action. You keep saying there's no fear. You just want to know what people are preparing. So really, spirit came first and then matter, isn't it? So our preparation right now, all of those who work very closely with me, we're all preparing in our mind, in our hearts, and our emotions. And we're like we call ourselves SAS kind of group. And we're absolutely looking at unpacking every fear, everything that's in us, all our conditioning and programming. And because at the end of the day, I mean, those who've read Celestine prophecy, where does synchronicity happen? You know, if we really believe, if we really work in the energy and we are celestial, well, guess what? We are going to be well prepared. We are going to be given the right time, the right place, and people will come in the right time as well. And so it's all that synchronicity. You know, Warren, Celestine prophecy.
Yeah, I want to be sharing on that before I start the message. So far out, that's simplicity.
Yes. And so, you know, again, I love that quote with Tao Te Ching is that, you know, do nothing and everything will be done for you. It's so, so powerful. Yes, all these things are going to happen, but if we truly move in the energy, in the spirit, the right people, everything, the right contacts will come plonking in your door. So I'm sure some of you guys have experienced that.
Yeah, totally.
And I think, you know, we have to adjust. We have to adjust to the situation, you know. I just remember my grandma telling me stories from Second World War, you know. They were cooking soups from things found on the ground, like there were absolutely horrible things, but that's what they were cooking from, you know. You just have to adjust the situation sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I grew up from poverty. So when you see that third world country child looking through the bins, that was me. I grew up like that. I grew up frolicking and looking for my food. I didn't wear shoes until about, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5, because my mum couldn't afford it. And I just wore whatever hand me down so anyone can throw clothes at me. So I grew up in total poverty in the Philippines. And coming to Australia was mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. It's a totally new world coming. It's like going to a new planet coming to Australia for me as a kid. I came here about when I was 10. And so I still have strong memories as a child frolicking through the bins and also looking for food, you know, getting the bananas and mangoes, anywhere that I could find food. And I would have to walk kilometers to get food, and especially water. Water was just, you know, if you live close to the river, it's great, but if you don't, it sucks, because there's you got to walk a long way to get the water, drinking water, that is. And if you do, you find water, well, you just have to drink whatever it is. And so, again, you know, it's just one of those, if you really, again, we are so, if we really trust in the universe, and that's a difficult thing to do, because we naturally want to do everything ourselves, isn't it? We naturally got to sort ourselves out, and because we can do it. But if we really trust in the universe, all things, celestial prophecy, again, it's good that you're sharing that, Warren. All these things will come landing in your plate. One of my friends, she had no money. She had to feed 4 children. She had no money at all. And whatever God means to you, she just said she had this voice, said, go outside of her house and there'd be money raining on you. And she did. She went outside and these notes came out of nowhere. It just floated down her outside of her house, and she was able to collect and buy food for the family.
And you know, I also believe, like, I was a child those days when in the communism times back in Europe, and I remember the days when there was nothing on the shelves for months and months and months, like absolutely nothing. And we still managed to go through, you know. You just get resourceful, you just get the ideas and you ask God and he provides, you know. None of us was starving, we were still fine. But yeah, you can't lose the hope, you know. You have to have the hope and just believe the universe will provide, and it will. That's my point, you know. I know people in Australia, they found probably very difficult to adjust to this. Like, how is possible we may have nothing on the shelves? But those of us who come from Europe, we went through that. And I was a child those days, and it wasn't easy, I must say. And I can't believe we'll be going through it again, but we can do it. We can do it, people.
Absolutely. And I mean, really, our lesson, if those of you, you know karma, perhaps there's a lesson here for all of us. I mean, there's certainly a lesson for me. I went through that poverty and I count it as blessing lessons. It was fantastic for me to go and experience that. And so obviously I created that in myself before I came here, and to experience that. Now, if food, it wasn't going to come my way, then so be it. In that case, I'll have to come back and incarnate again and do my lesson. Whatever I missed out, what I avoided in this time. So if I have to incarnate, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, really, death is just another phase of life. It's just another, you know, we go to a better place. That's the way I look at it. Our body, we're no longer restricted to this body, to this physical body. And if we have to pass on, we'll pass on. And incarnate whatever we need to incarnate next time. Now, my preference is not to come back again. Seriously, I don't want to come back. So I'll do whatever I need to do for this time in my lifetime.
Yeah, we often forget we are not just the flesh, you know, and we, the spiritual beings, just stuck in this body for this incarnation. So the moment we understand that, no matter what comes our way, we'll be able to go through it. You know, I remember reading so many books about the Second World War after my grandma told me the stories, and there were people in the concentration camps who were actually giving life for others. And when I was reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, they obviously were much further spiritually where I was those days, because we are scared for this body, but those people were not. They were actually giving their lives for others. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at all the past philosophers who've been brutally murdered, and also, you know, all the, imagine us women would be burnt on the stake, what we're talking about now, you know, back then. So we'd be burnt in the stake. But we're fortunate enough living in this life. I mean, I met one lady one time, I've never met her before, and she just straight away grabbed me and said, you know, oh, it's about time you come back, Grace. Now you've come here to redeem what you did in our past lives. And it's like, oh, really? And then he opened up what she was sharing with me. So that kind of crazy stuff, you know, these things, how can you explain that without experiencing it? And so if we can really look beyond what is matter, what is the matter? So that's what we're here to really journey and discover the mysteries. And whatever our lessons is at that, in this time, we don't avoid, we face it, we look at it, and we really, I mean, to me, I'm a bit of a masochist. I like to see challenges. To me, it's a challenge. How do I overcome this? How do I get over the hump? Because it's only a hump. And how do I get over it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that kind of thing. You got a smile there, Christine? You got something else you want to share?
I was thinking the fact that you keep saying, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on, and knowing how painful it is. I don't like pain very much myself, but when it happens, you really do have to deal with it. Yeah, sort it out within.
Yeah. Well, I know Sam Buckley's had a big week too. You want to share something, Sam?
Hey, yeah, just trying to remember what happened. Sometimes so much goes on, I forget what I've sort of gone through. I actually can't remember what it was.
You get that, don't you?
You do sometimes. Yeah. I remember I've been going through a bit of a financial journey. Can't remember what else, but I'll share a bit of this anyway for now. I came into this life not as poverty-stricken as Grace was in her younger years, but definitely in a place where my family was quite poor, and so I had that whole mentality. And I've been working on that one for quite a while. You know, you've got to work hard for the money and all that sort of stuff. It was definitely in my mind all the time, and I became a bit of a workaholic. I decided as a single mum there was no such thing as work-life balance, and so I decided I just had to do what I needed to do to make things work, and to hell with the rest. And I delved into, I think at that moment I just jumped into my masculine side and went, right, I've just got to work to get the money that I need for me and the kids. And then that just became a pattern that I just continued in for quite a while. And probably in the last 3 weeks, I've really broken open my feminine side and have been on quite a journey of discovery in that area, and have loved feeling the difference of operating in that feminine side rather than operating totally in my masculine side all the time. And feeling and being able to feel and create things in my life with that feminine creative energy. It's so powerful. And I found things like before, when I was working in my masculine and I had monkeys running around in my head, if I had a project to do, it was like, it always seemed really overwhelming. But now I'm finding that I can actually just easily break it down into each little step and do each little step at a time and getting much more done operating out of that feminine space and out of the masculine, which has been that's been something I've discovered this week and realized, which has been a really, really great journey. And about what Grace was mentioning before about how things come along when you need it. So I had been wanting to use like my marketing skills for quite a while in some other business to grow some other business that's mine, instead of helping other people all the time. And so I felt that e-commerce was the way I was going to go. So I started an e-commerce store, and I'd had very little training in that area. And just when I was nearly ready to launch it, this free challenge just popped up in my field of view. And that has just been really transformative for that side of my life, for this new venture that I'm taking on. So that's been really great. I've really appreciated those sort of things that just keep popping in just when you need them. It's kind of like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I love that. I love that. Really love that. Yeah, so I've really been enjoying that and that whole feminine side of my life. I can move into the masculine when I need to, but operating in that creative feminine energy that we've got, ladies, is just so much better.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Thanks, Sam. What we're going to do now is we'll get, before Warren comes on board, we'll do our usual heart-mind coherence, courtesy of Steve Plummer. So whenever you're ready, Steve, that would be wonderful.
Okay, all right. So I'll just give you a little bit of background first if you haven't done this before. The research by the Heart Math Institute in the US found that our brain has 40,000, our heart has 40,000 brain-like cells called sensory neurites. And they discovered what they call the little heart in the brain, and the little heart in the brain, the little brain in the heart rather, it can learn and think independently from the neurons in the brain. It can remember independently from the neurons in the brain, and it can communicate independently from the neurons in the brain. And the challenge for humans is that we have been conditioned to only see the world through our brain. And that means in some respects we are kind of separate or quote unquote incomplete in many ways when we do that. When we harmonize the heart and the brain, we are different to all forms of life. It gives us the powers of empathy and compassion, intuition and more. And we're the only species on the planet that can do that. And so the purpose of harmonizing the little brain and the heart with the big brain in our heads is it kind of like creates a hotline to our subconscious. And this is where true healing begins. When we harmonize the heart and the brain, scientists have found that the effects can last for up to 6 hours. And it even does things like deepens the impact of affirmations because they go into our subconscious faster when we are in this coherent state. So that's just a little bit of the scientific background, and it's a great exercise to do every day, a couple of times a day. You know, maybe when you're feeling frantic, fearful, stressed, worried, whatever. You know, that's a good awareness thing to go, okay, I can actually change this by going through the heart-brain coherence. So there's 3 steps to it, and I'll just take you through it. I'll be doing it on my end, and I'd invite you to follow me. So the first step is to shift our awareness. So I invite you just with the palm of your hands or a couple of fingers or one finger just to gently shift our awareness from our thinking mind to our feeling heart. So just gently touch your heart center, your heart space, either with, like I said, that open palm or a finger or a couple of fingers in whatever way is comfortable. And the reason that we do this is that our awareness, it always goes to the place on the body where we feel the touch. And it draws our awareness from our mind to our heart. And it sends a signal to our brain that I'm actually turning my attention inward. And that's the first step, to turn our attention inward. So to gently touch that heart center, it's sending a very important signal to our brain. And the second step is to slow our breathing. So I invite you to breathe in through the nose for a count of 5, to hold for a count of 5, and then we'll go out through our mouth for a count of 5. And we'll do that 3 times. So breathe in for a count of 5. Hold for a count of 5. And then release through the mouth for a count of 5. And again, in for a count of 5. Hold for 5. And then out through the mouth for 5. And once again, in through the mouth, in through the nose for a count of 5. Hold for 5. Then out through the mouth for 5. And when we do this, it tells the body that you are in a safe place, because the only time you breathe like this is when you feel safe. And so it's a signal for the body to let go of the stress hormones, feelings of stress and so forth, and to awaken the healing chemistry within, because the body can only do one thing or the other. And so by slowing our breathing like this, it gives the body permission to awaken and to slow down and to awaken the healing chemistry within us. So once again, I invite you to breathe in for a count of 5 through the nose. Hold for 5. And then out through the mouth for 5. One more time. In through the nose for 5. Hold for 5. And then exhale through for 5 through the mouth. And the third step is to generate a feeling, and this is key, to create a feeling in your heart from the place where you feel the touch, to the best of your ability, to feel one or a combination of care for anyone or anything, appreciation for anyone or anything, gratitude or compassion. These 4 words, scientists have found, trigger that connection between our heart and our brain. So to the best of your ability, feel the feeling of one or a combination of care for anyone or anything in your life, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. From that place you feel the touch. To the best of your ability, care, appreciation, gratitude, compassion. I'd invite you to take one more slow breath inwards for 5. Hold for 5. And then release through the mouth for 5. And that's the heart-mind coherence. So back to you, Grace.
Thanks, Steve. How's that for everyone? It's a lot calmer. Was that first time for anyone? Antonio says awesome. Wonderful, Tanya. That's great. Oh, it's your first time too, Antonia. Welcome. It's peaceful for Sachi. Oh, another first timer. Welcome, Judith. Thank you for being here, guys. we've got so many groups that Warren has created. So Siddhi Awakening is a place that we can really take stock of what's happening and go inward. So what we do here on Sundays is really come into ourselves and find a place of exactly what Steve just took us through, the heart and mind coherence. Any other topics, you know, there's that sovereign individual, and it's wonderful for those who actually are in that group, it's wonderful to see you guys are, you know, having discussion with one another. It's fantastic. And so the platform for Siddhi Awakening really is to come back inward.
Recording in progress.
And doing the preparation internally. So I was wondering, Warren, are you ready to step up and do your thing?
In 3 minutes from now, yes.
In 3 minutes.
At 11, at precise 11, yes.
Now, anyone who hasn't taken the mic, free to share. Oh, thanks, Imelda. I look useful. It's amazing what lighting does.
Grace, can I say something?
Go ahead.
Hi, how are you, Grace? It's Antonia. Hi, everyone there. I just wanted to get some clarity about this group because I just saw it on our Telegram group. Warren had posted it, and I just wondered what I'm meant to be probably understanding from this group here now. I'm really excited actually that I've joined up with you because I've been observing. We did the weekend and I've been doing a lot of the other webinars, and I was quite excited to do energy work with you, to be honest.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, really what we're here is, you know, just be yourself. Just
okay.
be yourself, whatever that means for you. And I ask you to really open up yourself. What resonates for you, great. And don't believe everything that Warren says, or Steve, or myself.
Yeah.
Find your truth. Find your own truth. Do your own research.
Of course.
And yeah, and really, we're here to just draw out the poison from the society, what we've been conditioned, what we've been programmed. And as I say, we do a lot of energy work Sundays, and I mainly do a lot of energy work myself.
Lovely.
And to clear blockages, to clear mental. Now, I'm not a fluffy, lovey kind of person, to be honest. I like to get into the nitty gritty and dig deep right into you. I scan everything that's in you, and whatever I see, whatever medallions I'm led to do, I use it to shift the energy in us. So I sometimes come out hard, but it's a loving hardness, because how do we shift? How do we break our fallow ground? And so breaking fallow ground really means breaking what's the hardness in our heart, because we've all been wounded, we've been hurt, we've been, you know, people have done many stuff in us. But at the end of the day, we are responsible for our action. We're responsible for the cause and effects, not just for ourselves, but in the consciousness field. When you look at it, you know, the energy we don't destroy the energy, we can only transform it. So if we don't transform it, what happens to the energy field collectively? What happens when our body goes down and, you know, we go to our next phase? What happens to that? What happens to all those things that you haven't really dissolved in yourself and bring it to unconditional love? Because, yeah, what we're here really, Antonia, is a journey, a hero's journey. So if you look in the Siddhi Awakening website, we've got hours and hours of videos, and one of them is Hero's Journey. And just to allow you to experience what it means. So Warren's gone through, you know, the process and the systems, what it means, and the practicality. So really what we hear in the first hour is bring into what Warren has shared, or Steve shared, or any of our team shared, to bring the theory and put it into practical use. by communicating with one another, using words, dialoguing with each other, and see what we can uncover.
Grace, I just want to, I just wanted to share one. This is really simple and it sounds very obvious, but I just wanted to share really briefly. You mentioned party last night. One of my daughters has turned 21, and so we had a fairly big brouhaha last night. And there were a lot of people staying here last night. There's still noise and everything, and seriously, there's shit everywhere, beer bottles and da 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 da. So we live a normal life. But the thing is, I said to everyone, right, I'm going. I've got a webinar to go and do. And whilst that is not remarkable in and of itself, in terms of my journey in this lifetime and the hideous people pleasing I have subjected myself to over decades, the old me would have gone into nice guy, dutiful father, dutiful husband kind of mode, and stayed there to people please and to be the host, the gracious host, and so forth. And I just said, no, I'm going. I've got other things to do. This is what's important to me today, right now. And we give Warren shit all the time about being a hideous narcissist, which he is, and which he owns. But the thing is, I have denied that in myself for so long, and the narcissist in me wanted to be here right now in this moment. And so I just said to everyone, get stuffed. I didn't say it like that, but I said, I'm going, right? I'm not playing the role of dutiful husband, father, host, gracious host, being a nice guy, sitting around having chit chat. I've got more important things to do right now. And that living my truth like that as the narc. Because like I said, there's shit everywhere that's got to be cleaned up. There's people here laughing and having a good time still. But no, this was what was important to me, and I own my narc, and here I am.
Because Steve is a really nice and caring man, actually.
He's a beautiful man. He's such a lovely, sweet, lovely, beautiful. Like,
you can all get stuff.
Such a sensitive man. Just a sweetheart that just touches my soul as to a beautiful feminine man who can bring joy to my heart and soul.
Get stuff, Warren.
He's a sweet man, isn't he, Warren? And he's such a good boy, he is.
He's so good to his mum. He was a lovely man to his mother, And I love the way he treated his sister and family.
Yeah, absolutely, Warren. And twins that we are, that we've moved on from that, right?
The seeing, right? Come on, Steve, say it. Go on.
Yeah.
Get it up, mate.
Absolutely.
Well, at least someone loves listening to you, Steve. Tanya says she loves listening to you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Well, Steve, it's always at least you have one fan.
Yeah, and it's not you, Warren. So yeah, that's good.
No, my love for you is deep, but
Thanks, Dr. Bill.
All right, over to you, Warren. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Grace.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. So we'll just all turn our cameras off, other than me, seeing as I'm the narcissist. That's my show now. So everyone wants to see my handsome face now, not yours. Okay. So let us get under the
And it is recording, Warren.
Yep. Okay.
Just don't pause it.
Okay, so good. Okay. So who would like to start with the prayer of Yeshua? Who would like to take the mic for that?
Well, I did it last week. I'm happy to do it again, or it'd be good if someone else did, though.
No, that'd be good, Steve. You do it. That'd be great.
Okay. All right. All right, the prayer to our Father. O thou from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light and vibration. May your light be experienced in my utmost holiest. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe, all that vibrates, just as on earth, that is material and dense. Give us wisdom, understanding, assistance for our daily need. Detach the feathers of faults that bind us, our karma, like we let go the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, materialism, common temptations, but let us be freed from that, what keeps us from our true purpose. From you comes the all-working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age. Sealed in trust, faith and truth, I confirm with my entire being.
Beautiful. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so I always like to share a bit of a word before we start. And it was really interesting hearing the synchronicities and just the war that we're in. And I want to start by saying the greatest war that we actually have is not what's going on in society around about us, but what is happening internally within our own world and our own perception. And listening to what was being said today, it was so fascinating, going like, you can see the inner war that people experience. And I've noticed that especially with people who were adamant with me 3 months ago that this whole, jab thing was one big joke and there's no way they'd take it, have actually gone and taken it. And when I would more interview them to find out why, just out of curiosity, and the story was always the same. It's what was happening in their heads. Like, well, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. And if this doesn't happen, then this is going to happen. Then when this happens, then this will happen. And then I won't be able to go to my favorite cafe and I won't be able to do this and I won't be able to do that. And so I realized at the end of the day, it's the only way out. At least if I can do this, I can end up doing that. And it's like, okay, so that's a pretty amazing, mental logical calculations, but it was all happening in the head. And again, I asked him, so I guess you've been watching the media? Yeah. Oh yeah, no. I said, okay. So as I said to a friend the other day, as Guantanamo Bay, the terrorist detention center in America showed, coercion and mental psycho torture works really, really well. And it does. And I even listening today, I thought, interesting, you can see how it starts to affect people's thinking and start to go, oh, well, if this maybe happens and that maybe happens. And I remember someone saying to me as an example about the whole truck thing. When I heard that, I said, well, number one, I doubt everything I hear anyway, because normally they've gone through 3 or 4 rounds of Chinese whispers. So I said, that's my natural inclination. And 99% of the time I'm right. And it's just someone's, incredibly imaginative brain making up the story, which then gets transmitted to someone else's imaginative brain, which creates an embellishment to the story, which then goes to someone else's imaginative brain who creates another embellishment to the story. And we all know how that happens, like it could start as simple as, I caught up with Sandra the other day. Yeah, we got on really well. Then someone says, Warren caught up with Sandra. They apparently got on really well, wonder what that means. And someone else says, well, maybe there's something going on with Warren and Sandra. And then that person goes away, goes, I think something's going on with Warren and Sandra, apparently they caught up the other day. And and then someone says, really? Yeah, okay. And what happened? I'm not really sure, but they've spent a lot of time together. And then that person goes, Warren caught up with Sandra the other day and they spent a lot of time together. And I don't know what happened, but I have a feeling and you know what I mean, don't you? It's literally like Chinese whispers. It just builds up and builds up. And you have no idea what the real truth is anymore. So I don't really take things on face value. And just as a pure aside, I looked into the truck and the first thing I noticed was that the main reason they were talking about striking in the first place was a pay dispute to do with their union, to do with toll. The secondary thing that's now come about in parts of the eastern states is some of them are now using it as an opportunity to also protest against the border closures. So I just said, well, I'd be highly doubt that West Australia, where I live, it'll even affect us much, apart from a few truckies. And so I said, I don't expect it to even affect us anyway. And if it does happen to affect us, well, I'll just deal with that at the time. So that was, but I said the balance of probabilities, the chances are so low. I just said, I'm not even going to waste my time, and I haven't. I just haven't wasted my time even thinking about it, planning for it, or anything, because I've assessed the risk. If I lived in New South Wales and Queensland, would I take it more seriously? Possibly a little bit more seriously, but it would just purely extend to just making sure I had a little bit of food on hand. And that was it, and get on with life. And Yeshua said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And I know I've been sharing about this in recent weeks, but I cannot emphasize enough that the kingdom of heaven is within you, because everything starts in our mind and what we're thinking and what we create about a situation. And I see myself doing it as well at times. I have my own little areas of slight vulnerability where I can do it. And I just observe my mind starting to go off and create one story and then create another story. And the secret I've learned is I just very quickly own that story. So that's really what I felt to start off by. My word for the week is just everything you hear in the media or hear around about you, just always remember it's generally passed through 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 different people and different sources of embellishment before it finally actually reaches you. So chances are, even if there's some small modicum of truth in it, in more likely than not, it's not even true. That's been my thing. I don't know if anyone here has heard of the work by Byron Katie, but Byron Katie, you go through and ask a series of 4 questions to break down anything that's going on. And like, is it true? Is the first question you ask. And then how do I absolutely know for sure 100% that this is true? And then the third question is, how do I feel when I have that thought? And the fourth question is, if I had the opposite thought, how will that change what's happening? So even using the Byron Katie, is it absolutely true that the truckies are going to be striking and there'll be food short? Is it true? Well, let's assume that it seems to be. Do I absolutely know 100% certain and know that it's true without a shadow of a doubt that the truckies are going to strike and I won't have enough food? Chances are no, you don't. It's not absolutely, you don't absolutely know it's true. I mean, you may find you come to that day and it's kind of fizzled out, or you may find out that there's plenty of local producers who stocked up ready for it and you can just walk in and buy as normal. Then how do I feel when I have that thought? Most likely than not, you're probably scared shitless and go, oh no, I'm not going to be able to eat. And it brings fear. And how do I feel when I have the opposite thought? I'm provided for, I'm abundant, everything's fine, because that's just how it's always been. You feel pretty good. So it all starts within you. And it's so interesting when Grace shared the Celestine prophecy, because I got up the 12 insights, and I was actually, as I was going through it, I go, wow. So I just thought I'd quickly bring these up just as a reminder, and we'll do this another time, perhaps in a webinar. It goes through the thing. So yeah, it's a great little book. It goes through 12 different levels of consciousness insight. So it's another form of consciousness tiers that I've spoken about at the event and other times. But yeah, so generally you first have this kind of awakening. So in simple terms, a awakening starts to happen as people start to realize synchronicities and mysterious coincidences. And I remember Steve saying something like this happened to him. He just started getting coincidences and little things like that happening. And stuff like that. So the second insight, the longer now, it says you start to realize there's a longer viewpoint, like a 500-year-old preoccupation with secular survival and comfort. And we're getting back to the real purpose of human life on this planet. In other words, what's happening now has happened before many times, where it's part of a much bigger picture. We're all part of a great awakening. The third awakening that seems to happen is you start to realize how much things are energy. My observation is that most of the population haven't even reached this yet, but a larger proportion are reaching this. Some are definitely stepping into this one now. In fact, quite a lot of people. This seems to where one group of people get stuck, a matter of energy, realizing that everything is a field of energy, and that attention goes where attention goes, energy flows, and influencing other energy systems. So this is what I feel in Siddhi Awakening is happening with many right now. Many are starting to, probably many of you, until you got involved with Siddhi Awakening and the Sovereign Individual, you may have heard of it, but now you're appreciating it on a greater level. So it's awakening to that thing that goes, yeah, actually our attention and our energy can affect everything that's going on around about us. Then you have this struggle for power is another one, where we then try to get energy by manipulating or forcing others, or pushing this, or pushing the government, or going out and doing a protest, or dominating a member of your family nearby, or someone around about you. Competition for scarce human energy is the cause of all conflict between people. People feeling there's scarcity, feeling that there's lack, feeling that we, you know, a fear of not being loved. So we're in a relationship or in a partnership or in a connection with someone, and we use guilt trips or fear things to try and keep them there so we don't lose that energy or that thing around about. That's the next stage. And then the message of the mystics, where a new thing starts to happen here, where we experience a connection with divine energy, which is described by mystics of all traditions, lightness and buoyancy. The sixth insight is clearing the past. That's a great one. This is where you start to even realize that with children, you're treating them as adults. What this book, just when we first had William, before he was even 1 year old, I was so glad I read this. It helped us in our parenting of our children, because it actually taught us just to literally allow them to find their sovereignty and put nothing on them. Like my youngest 15-year-old openly says that he's a bum. He doesn't do anything. And he, when asked, he says, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm sure when the time comes, I'll know. Now, when I was 15, I was saying the same thing, but I had parents not just trying to hammer me in schools, whereas I just left him be. As I think you can only go so long being bored, you know, before you want to find some purpose in your life. So as I see it, on the balance of probabilities, you'll probably find some purpose very soon, because you get fed up with doing nothing. So the seventh thing is engaging the flow, which it talks about here. When we find we've got a mission, we start looking at our parents, we start comparing our journey to our parents. We start to realize how both our parents, in my case, when I read this book, I came to a realization how my mother and father, I was a direct creation energetically of them. My father is is a public speaker. He's highly rated at every university. He's famous for his public speaking. He's a master of politics. He's very, very good at anything to do with speaking, politics, things like that, but very fearful when it comes to money. By contrast, my mum is a natural entrepreneur. She started a shop, she started music teaching, she runs that, she's quite well known. She's a born entrepreneur and radical change maker. So I've seen how both of those sides, my mum's conservatism or my father's conservatism and mental abilities, and then my mother's genius kind of creative driven side to be a leader. The eighth insight, the interpersonal ethic, where we start to see consciousness and the beauty of others, and we see how it says here, that's the next one. And so this is where the children come in, seeing the beauty in everyone. The ninth insight was the emerging culture, that we actually start to see more and more, we start to move beyond fear. We start to see humans in higher energy states. We start to transform into spiritual forms, move into more light body. In the book, he actually moves into a brief moment where he turns invisible, because he moves beyond any kind of fear. So he transformed into a spiritual form and moved outside of fear. This is how many of the mystics and Christ and that could actually teleport, and thus ending the cycle of birth and death, the reincarnation cycle. The 10th one is where you hold the vision, and where we've struggled to live this spirituality on earth, and start to think in terms of a world view and creating a world culture and a world vision and the world transformation and change. The 11th insight is where you start to realize way above the latent power of the mind. And they give examples of accidents and injuries, and how even every injury and accident you have is an energetic message to you. Like in my case, my body has consistently kept getting things coming up to the left side. You know, I broke my left hand a few years ago. Then I stress fractured my left heel last year. Then I had an issue with my left side of my back. Then I had an issue with my left hip, and all that one by one I've corrected. And then I've now, and by and large, almost finished with my thumb. And it's because I finally realized that left, feminine side of my body. Yeah, there's clearly some stuff around the feminine I've got to work on and come to grips with and own. And I'm realizing some really deep stuff around accepting the feminine fully within me, because I've got a deep expressive richness and sensitivity. I really, embrace deep connections with the feminine. there was still part of me holding that back and allowing that because of societal expectations and things around about me, and what if that, and what does this mean, and how will I be perceived? And as I've been letting go of that, I've been noticing my left side has been actually healing up a lot. And then the final thing is the hour of decision, the 12th, Amy the artist, the hour of decision. And that's when, and the 12th insight talked about reincarnation and really coming to grips with the afterlife, the reincarnation, the control dramas that we're living by, and what keeps us connected in this earthly realm and things like that. So it's a really great little book and a great time, and something well worth reading. So The Celestine Prophecy by Redfield. Okay, so that was just, I felt to share that to start with. That's something you can look at in your own time if you haven't, but it's a good reminder about the synchronicities, and that we're just part of an evolution of consciousness that's happening. And there's a scripture in the book of Hebrews that says about the importance of fellowship or connection with one another, especially as we see the day approaching. In other words, the ending of this age of consciousness as we know it, and we see the inevitable coming up of the stuff. This is all I see. What's happening in Sydney, what's happening in America, what's happening in UK, what's happening in Sydney, what's happening in New South Wales, what's happening anywhere else like that. It's just an evolution of consciousness that's taking place in society. It's just bringing up the inward collective karma that's been there for so long and been suppressed. All I see is what we're seeing in the physical world is what's been in the inward world for a long time. I don't know about anyone else, but I mean, if I lived in the world today, I'm sure there would have been people who tried to label me Asperger's as a kid because I was really like, ugh. That was because I read and felt energy really, really clearly. And the planet and the energy of what's been going on has been an absolute shithole for some time. And I think all of you who are inwardly sensitive would know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been horrific what we've been seeing and feeling. And everything, and I would go in the East Coast and I would feel the energy, and I'd be like, it would do my head in every time I travel over there. And what I'm actually seeing happening now is what I've been sensing and feeling in the inward for some time. And in fact, I've actually got more hope now for the planet, but I've had in a long time, because now I see everything out in the open. People can't run away and pretend things aren't happening. People have either got to go along with what's happening or say, no, this isn't the reality I want to create for myself anymore. This is such an evolution of human consciousness. And when you see it from that perspective, you're like, wow, like this truckies thing is forcing everyone to realize the inner scarcity. But for so long, we've had so many opportunities for the law of attraction, the secret, every possible spiritual teaching manual imaginable, teaching us about our inner abundance, about the things that we can shift, and we just haven't listened. We claim we listen, to a small degree we listen, but we haven't really. And this is just a reflection that says you haven't actually listened. And because you haven't listened, now you're getting a forced awakening, whether you like it or not. And it will get miles worse until society wakes the fuck up and stops complaining about the outward and realizing that it will keep happening, and it will get worse, 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 until finally everyone goes, okay, I give up. I surrender. I let go, please. I hear the lesson. Help me to go through this lesson. Help me to transform now. I realize now the inner scarcity is all in me. This Daniel Andrews is me too. I'm that same tyrannical control dictator. I'm that same guy or woman who's treated my partners horrendously, and I've covered it all up. I pretended, but everything's okay, but I haven't. I know it. I've been horrible to my partners. I've come out looking really, really good and smiling and calling them all kinds of names, but I really starved them energetically. I pulled my energy away from them. I pulled my heart away from them. As a woman, I locked them out and then kind of blamed them when they reacted to it. And then for men I realized too, yeah, I've been an arsehole with women. I haven't listened. This is a forced awakening. And all this shows me is Australia is being really dense right now, like really dense, as well as parts of America. We're just not getting it. And having people coming here and listening to this gives hope that there's some, but by and large, we're just not getting this. And this is the message really for the day that I'm getting. And it will continue to happen and forced awakenings. We all know about situations in our life where we get a life-threatening near-death experience. I've had one. I know many of you have had illnesses which wake you up and shock you, and you take action. So this is a real awakening right now for society. So this is a time to really take stock, like really take stock. Otherwise, it will get worse. Otherwise, you will wake up and there will be food shortages, because that will manifest you in a scarcity. You'll wake up one day and just like that, you've been locked down indefinitely. You'll wake up and there'll be armies coming in, vaccinating everyone by force. If people continue not to listen to the inward messages and realizing that we're creating it, this will happen, because this is what's happening on the inward. If we take the shift and take the warning and get shocked out of our lethargy, we will see none of it happen. And it really comes down to humanity conscious choice as to what we choose as a collective, starting with the individual. I have been living with full expectation life will get better. And in the last 2 years, life has got better and better. I don't say that arrogantly, it just has. I've just expected it to get better. I've expected WA to be okay. And my approach is that, like, there was 2 days ago, there was an announcement that there was 2 truckies who come in who got COVID. And I just saw people starting to run everywhere. We're heading for lockdown. I just said to my son straight away, now, I said, I went through critically. I said, I highly doubt it, but let's just shift the energy to be sure and get on with life as normal. My assumption was there'd be no lockdown and life would go on as normal. So far it has. I said, if that happens to change, we'll deal with that at the time. You know, if I wake up tomorrow and something's happened, I'll go, okay, there's a lesson here. What did I miss? Or is it just a lesson for our society? So Antonia said about doing it as an individual. Well, you just start doing it by intention, you know, Antonia. It's just being aware when it comes up, the fear, and just seeing it and letting it pass through you, and just listening to everything that's being said and really seeing where it's in us and just taking it to stop, taking it to the heart. So this is why I've really been teaching on this power of the subconscious mind, because I believe the only weapons that we've got to see to change is to shift the collective individuals. And I know that if I can teach this and we can start to get this as a collective individual consciousness and make these shifts and really, 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 really make these shifts, then you're going to go to your family with more empowerment. You're going to go to people around you with more empowerment. You're going to shift, and then they're going to shift, and then someone else is going to shift. And before you know it, you'll be very surprised how the Tao will live out, and you'll do nothing and it'll be done for you. And you'll see a great awakening happening before your eyes. And you'll think, how did that happen? And it just happened because the shift happened. So we can transform all energy. That's been the message of recent weeks. Every minute, every hour of the day, we manifest by our thoughts and choices. Every hour, every minute of the day. I remember I was really pleased on Friday because, on all honesty, when I saw about the truck drivers, I was surprised. I go, oh, okay. I didn't, because it wasn't even within my mind. So when about the consciousness, when I heard about the truck drivers of the food shortage, I go, okay, interesting. Let's have a look into that a little bit more, just out of curiosity. So this is all scientific stuff, as well as all the teachings of the masters, the yogis, the consciousness. So just understand, if you're living in Sydney, you're part of this movie. You are a film producer, and you're somehow creating this movie. If you live in Victoria, in Melbourne, you are creating this movie. If you're living in Canada, you are creating this movie. If you're living in the US, you are creating the movie of your city. So as a movie producer, you can change the movie that's being played out before you. And the basic shamanic teaching always tells you it only takes one person to completely shift within themselves while being physically present in the city to start changing the city around them, because all of us have that power within us. So it's all, everything we're seeing is not moral, it's not emotional, it's not a question of fair or unfair, whether it's a horror movie you're creating for your life, whether it's a good movie, whether it's a romantic novel, you know, whether it's, you know, a beautiful feminine movie with lots of flowers and lots of loving by Steve Plummer, whatever it happens to be, you know, you are the creator of the movie of your life. And it's this is what we're dealing with. So I also shared last week about turning water into wine, and those of you who were here, And I went through that whole message, and you can see that last week if you weren't there, and how Joseph Murphy teaches about the external world is always a perfect reflection of your inner thoughts. Your habitual thoughts will manifest success. It's a certain law, in the same way as sowing a seed in the ground will reap a fruit after its kind. So we went through about the wine and the water and about how this works. And I went through all the various scriptures. We looked at how you had to basically step up, get your desire really clear. It was all about your feeling and how you were feeling about something, because manifestation always happens by what you're feeling. And especially we talked about this thing called that lower mind, that mother of Jesus, that talks the voice of doubt, that moves you into fear, but doubts that manifestation, but looks at the outward. So really what we taught last week, and that's what I want to emphasize, was about the law of the outward and how that manifests. And then we went through the next stage, which was where, yeah, my hour is not yet come. In other words, there's always a time period between your manifestation and when it happens. I have no doubt we're heading into a major awakening in Australia and in the world, but there's going to be a time period happening as to the manifestation of the physical and what's happening within my own inward side. And that is why faith is always accompanied by patience and things like that. And once you move into that place of faith, we shared last week, there's this instant command that happens in the unconscious to start the process rolling. So you start to see it come to pass. And then what happens is that in the meantime, while you're waiting, continue to fill your water pots, your mind, with stuff that you want, you desire to manifest in your life, not stuff you don't desire to manifest in your life. In other words, I don't have any interest in having a shortage of food. If I do happen to have a shortage come about, I'll realize I've probably been eating too much and it's time to fast. That's literally how I metaphysically see what's going on with the truck drivers. If I did see that happen, I go, okay, well, clearly I have been getting messages to fast and I've been ignoring them, so I'd better start listening. That would be how I would see it. So, and then what happens is that once all this starts to happen, the manifestation happens and you always end up getting even better than you ever expected. So this is what we shared last week. If you haven't seen that recording or haven't seen that one and you would really like to go ahead and watch that happen, all you have to do is go to this Siddhi Awakening website, become a free member, and you will find, as you go into the free members area, when you go down to the Sunday trainings, you will find all of your past training, so to speak. So the ones here are all up to date. I made sure they are, the staff. Okay, so now let's get on with what I was going to share today and what today is going to be all about. So before I get into that one, if you want to type anything in the chat, feel free. If you've got anything particularly profound you feel like you'd like to share, just type the word mic, M-I-C, and happy for you to quickly take the mic. I don't know what you mean about the transformational, Antonia, but that I just showed the website. That's the membership site. So out of interest to everyone, how does my mic sound like these days since I've had my new mic put in? Christine says she'd like to see the new website again. It's better? Oh, good. Yep. Oh, yeah, the Awakening, two of the groups. Yeah, they've got different purposes. The transformational group, we tend to, is more serious. The Siddhi Awakening on overall things. So, yep. So I'll just quickly show you that website again. It's just in here, siddhyawakening.com.au. Okay, so that's the website, the siddhyawakening.com.au. So, Daniela, well overdue for another fast. So I see it. Yeah, so all I would do is if I felt being called to another fast, I would just listen to it. And then you may find that food shortages won't even happen, you know, so that's how I would see it. There's never a shortage of anything in the world, really. We've always got just what we need. That's how I see things. So, yep, sure, Christine, you can do that. Okay, so what I'm going to share about today is go on a slightly different tact on the power of the subconscious mind and the kingdom of heaven. one of the greatest things Yeshua taught, and this was some of my early teaching. Oh, Christine Evans wants the mic. Okay, Christine, sorry, I missed that. Take the mic, Christine. Is that right? You want the mic, or are you just saying that my microphone was good? Because that's what that's how I read it. But Grace is saying that it's taking the mic.
Oh no, I was just saying that your mic's very clear now. Thanks, Warren.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christine. Okay, so the pearl of great price. So I want to share about the Sermon on the Mount and just do this over my next couple of times I share, because some of the greatest teachings of the mystery school and the Gnostics about the inward journey are taught in here, which really have been missed by the church and by those who teach on all this. So I'm just going to start with the pearl of great price, which really is behind everything that Christ taught on the Sermon on the Mount. And it's really talking about the strictness of the call to go on a spiritual journey. And Yeshua said, and this is everything from the Gnostics, the Kriya Yogis, the Buddhists, all of them taught that that the kingdom of heaven or any kind of spiritual quest requires a complete devotion, complete commitment, and being completely sold out to what you're doing. So when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. And I remember learning that when I was a young man and walking that path. So narrow is the way to life, but the way to destruction is broad. Deny your own ambitions, take up your cross and follow the higher path is what the scriptures say. In other words, the path to destruction, or the path to maybe not even destruction, but going into reincarnation, having to go back and start all over again, all that is it's a broad path, and many will go on that path. That's the vast majority of humans on this earth right now will either have to reincarnate again or go down a path of destruction. And so the whole nature of the mystic and the Gnostic teachings is to deny your ambitions and follow the higher path, release them. And in fact, there's this whole teaching in the Tao that when you let go of something, you get it back in a far better form. So the critical thing is letting go and losing that attachment. Yeshua even said that for those who choose to let go of all of their earthly ambitions and dreams, they will get them back in a far better form. So the releasing the need for outer security to receive deep inner security is the basic message of the Gnostics and the basic message of the higher path. So as you release your need, so many marriages and so many relationships and so many people's friendships and so many families, and the greatest suffering for so many people in what's happening in the world today is their complete and utter reliance on the outward security. Like a good example of that is getting married. Osho in his teachings on Tantra says that marriage, that going and getting physically married, he said, is a very different thing from being in love with someone or having a deep connection. He said, in fact, usually from his experience, outward marriage is actually the enemy of connection and union, because he said most people get married for physical security and to try and to basically soothe and interfere they've got of the person leaving them. And that is why so many marriages, he says, actually end up either in divorce or in happiness. Because most people, if you, especially, it's an innate desire in the feminine to nest and to have security and have shelter, right back to the hunter-gatherer. So the natural instinct to get married often comes in thinking that that's the answer to feel secure. And as the divorce courts show, that's not necessarily the case. And in fact, many a time, people who get married end up soon, who've been together for a while and been perfectly happy, suddenly end up with problems. And Osho said that you should never get married to somebody unless you're doing it more for a motive different to love. In other words, you're doing it from a conscious decision to, for example, like fit into a particular community that you're living in that would not accept you. A bit like me getting a law license or doing a law degree to get credibility in the business world. That's the main reason I did it. Not because I believe the law degree really made any difference to anything about me. In fact, I didn't learn a lot from it at all, but it gave me a ticket into a world I wouldn't have otherwise had. So marriage can be a ticket, for example, if you're going to get into a certain world or society that you would otherwise be shunned. But he said otherwise, he said it can actually be the enemy of connection. And he said, true connection with two people is like a soul food. It's an inward journey. So this is the teaching of Tantra. I know in business partnerships, all my business partners that I've had, we generally, the only ones that didn't really work were ones where I had all these detailed agreements. The ones where I didn't really have them, where we just agreed, we made an inner commitment to each other. I could feel the commitment was real. And then we just wrote up some kind of memo to help us understand our commitment to each other. Those worked really, really well. So the first thing to share here is that releasing this need for outward security and having the world different around you. You can be in a shithole of a world around you and have the greatest inner peace in the midst of the storm. That's the first teachings that Yeshua gave to his disciples and gave to the people. He said, inner peace has nothing to do with what's happening in the world around you. They're two different things. So many people think, I will have inner peace once I get married to this, because then this person has given me a commitment, therefore I will feel secure. Or I will have more inner peace when we get our freedoms back and we're allowed to travel again. My guess is that people will be very sadly disappointed who believe that. People who go and get vaccinated and then go, oh, good, now I can travel, thinking that will bring them back inner peace, will probably feel less peace. My theory is that's what's killing people and giving them adverse reactions more than the vaccine. That's my own private theory. It's people's fear and people's belief systems around that and why they took it that's actually poisoning them. That's my personal inner theory, and I'm pretty sure I'm right based on my understanding of the Gnostic teaching. I've met people who have had the jab and they've been perfectly fine, you know, and I think a lot of it's to do with that inner belief system. I'm not saying to take it. I mean, it's just a disaster with the ingredients. The point I'm saying is the biggest thing that's causing the biggest suffering in people is the belief systems around that and this need for outer security. I know people who are in our family who are openly weren't going to take it, but are taking it because they just don't want to not go to their favorite restaurants on the East Coast anymore. They want to make sure they can travel. Even though, mind you, there's been no guarantee that people can travel once they get it. There's no guarantee that people will be able to, that there'll be an awful lot of difference in the freedoms or whatever else. If it is, it may be temporary. But people are making this decision. So these are the basic teachings of it, like the need for outer security. So the best thing you could do in this time right now in the world that we're living in is actually let go and crucify or kill that need for outer security and let it all go. Let it go. Your partner can't give you security. The man or woman that you love deeply, they can't give you security. The only security they can give you is that, in fact, as I learned in the tantric teachings, in the Western model of marriage or any kind of union, for example, or connection, we believe that the vow, I will be with you until death do us part, which, as I was taught in Tantra, is the most unrealistic promise you can ever make to someone, because that promise is only in the now. And so I could say to a woman, for example, until death do us part. Let's just say that a year later, I suddenly become this completely abusive guy who watches baseball all day and then yell at her and throw things at her every time that she annoys me. Now, suddenly she's going to be questioning the vow that she made because I'm not the same guy. Equally, if suddenly the same girl who was feeding my soul, nourishing my heart, giving me intimacy, looking after herself to look beautiful for me, suddenly eats whatever she wants, just blows right out, starts being grumpy with me all the time, won't give me sex, well, that vow can start to become a real hindrance to me. So in the tantric teachings, you know, it's until death to our connection do us part, you know. That's the thing, like until death to our connection do us part. That's one of the things I was taught in Tantra. So until death to our connection do us part, yeah, that's a true vow or whatever else, which I'm comfortable giving with someone. And I say this to people in my life, you know, while we have a good connection, while there's this flow of equal exchange of value happening between us, I'm committed to that vow. I'm committed to that energetic exchange between us. So these are the basic teachings of this kind of tantric and things like that. So the need for, you know, outer security to receive deep inner security. So your true family are those aligned with your values, the higher path, your soul family, you know. That's the other thing that Yeshua taught. So, yeah, so if your family and you have absolutely diametrically opposite values, it doesn't mean that now you ignore, you know, that kind of your earthly duties or responsibility. But for example, there's no way in heck that I would compromise my health or my own value or my own safety to go and connect with my earthly family somewhere. That's the biggest, and again, it's the suffering from these attachments that Yeshua taught. So it's very difficult to bring transformation to you in society when we have lots of attachments that we're frantically holding on to not lose. So the number one lesson that I would be sharing today that comes from the inward walk is to releasing that need for outer security to receive that deep inner security, and realize that security first starts within us. And yeah, the best thing you can do is not get married to someone just for the sake of getting that security. The security comes from the inner vow and then the inner commitment to that person for exchange of energy. It's the same with your business. It's the same with anything. It's the same with your profession. I was very attached to the idea of being a licensed accountant and a licensed lawyer and thinking that was the be all and end all. Eventually I realized that, and I've met so many people who've told me, for example, I would really like to, I don't want to be taking this jab and but you know, I don't have much choice. My profession requires it. And I said this to a chiropractor recently. I said, so do you need to be licensed as a chiropractor to fix people's backs and bodies? And they said, probably not really, but, and I said, well, no buts. I said, you don't need it. It's just a outer attachment. I remember I let go of my license as a lawyer. I let go of my license as an accountant. And they were both quite scary. Did my life change? Not at all. In fact, it got easier. I found I could do more than I could before because I didn't have those outward restrictions on my life. So I now realize in my inner self that I haven't lost any of that knowledge by giving up that license. I haven't lost any of it. So the strictness of the call to get through this time is this inward walk and letting go of the attachments out and about you. And I'm not saying not to take action that you feel led to do, because often part of doing what's right is to speak out. But imagine speaking out from a position of calm, centered power, but in a point of fear, anger, and an inward terror of scarcity. And that's what I noticed with much of the protests and what my objection is. Not so much the fact people are speaking out. I think that's a good thing. It's the energy that you're coming from when you're doing it. I speak openly on my webinars and teach people, and it's interesting how I've been very grateful for how many people have been willing to come and listen to the message. But I think partly what people appreciate about it is you can probably feel I'm not coming from scarcity. I'm speaking my truth. I'm speaking limitations, and you'll find you'll have more power with your family when you can say that. And I was saying this even to someone the other day about a situation where they were very distressed about the fact their family now want to go and get jabbed for various reasons to do with being able to travel and do all that. I said, and, you know, they got into an argument with them. And I actually said to them, you know, do you want to be respected for your choices with your body? And they said, yes, I do. And I said, don't you think your family deserves the same right? And that actually really stopped. I said, don't you think your family deserves the same right to be respected for the choice they're making with their body? You may not like it, but don't they deserve the same right? And she got it. She was great. You know, she got it. And I saw a shift in her because of it. So, and then what happens is you just don't know what could happen. So anyway, this is just what I felt to share to get started with on all of this. There's so much scriptures about this, and Yeshua himself, when he was challenged by his family about what he was doing, speaking out in public, Yeshua didn't get angry at them. He didn't get into a big fight with them. He just said to them, well, who is my family? My family are those who are aligned with my highest values. That's who's aligned, you know? That's who's aligned, and who's aligned with the highest values. And, you know, I heard this the other day from Sammy. It was a beautiful speech where she said that, you know, you're my family because you're aligned with my highest values and who I really am. And that touched me. It was really lovely. And that's your family. Grace and I may be divorced legally, but I still regard her as my family, you know, as a deep family. You know, we're very close friends. So it's those who have your highest values. So this was the whole nature of the inward teaching. And this is, if you can get what I'm sharing today, you will go away from today onwards, and honestly, you'll be much happier. You'll notice the way you see the world will be different. because you will just really get back to that inner journey and finding that inward security, and that everyone who fits into your life will start to become a value exchange and a true family, and you let go of all of that. I find now I get on better with my mum because I've just let go of her 100% like never before. I let go of my dad. It's actually quite funny. My friends find it particularly funny because they said, "How did you feel when you you know, when your family got the got the jab?" I said, "I just thought they'd probably die." And I said at first, and I just was quite cool with it. And I said, "Oh, to my surprise, they haven't." And everyone just cracked up laughing. I said, "But it's true." I said, "And I've realized anyway, they probably won't." So they said they're perfectly fine with having it. And that's because I completely let go. I really did. I was just like, well, yeah, I just assumed that was their choice of their body. I respected, and I assumed they'd die from it. And they haven't. So, okay, cool. They'll be around a bit longer. I'll enjoy them. I'll keep enjoying them. So Mika said this is giving me a lot of peace. Thank you, Mika. It's good. I'm really glad it is. And Estelle, I totally line. Thank you. I'm hungry for more of this teaching. Yeah, look, you'll enjoy what I'm sharing today, Ben Estelle, because the more you hunger, the more you'll be satisfied. That's what Yeshua promised. Those who hunger for the deeper secrets will be satisfied. You know, you will get everything that you dreamed of, and you'll get more. And so I like these particular scriptures here. In Genesis 12, in fact, there's a very clear statement on the strictness of the call that you will see. So Genesis 12 says the following. I'm just going to get it up for you. This is a wonderful speech that the father made to Abraham. He said, "Get out of your country," and kindred means people, "and from your father's house," in other words, your family, "unto a land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great and make you a blessing." And when you read that story, he was called out of his culture, which he's living in at the time. He was just called out. And he was told, leave your culture, walk away from it. I remember doing that in my 20s, and I never looked back. You know, I walked away, and it was the greatest thing I ever did, was just to walk away from my family, from my culture, and just experience that letting go. Psalm 45:12 says this. Hang on. 45:10. "Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline your ear, forget your own people and your father's house." So that's another one. Forget your family, your culture, your world, everything, your dreams, everything that you've come from. This is the greatest lesson of the mystics. And you will be, and it says the king desires your beauty. I will share a deeper side of my life that none of you would have ever heard, you know, but I had a very, very, very lonely childhood. I always felt this inner emptiness. I was bullied before, up until 10, quite consistently, even a bit after. I felt this constant disconnection from my parents and my family. They were emotionally shut off. I had so many issues with my mum, I could write a novel on it. I hated school with an absolute passion, and they tried to get me to go. By the time I was 18, I had the confidence, of a dead snail. I had an inferiority complex through the roof, but I built out myself, all kinds of stuff that was going on. And at the time, the psychology and mental health wasn't actually encouraged. If you in any way had that, you were seen as weak. And I had no confidence around girls and women. And I remember it was the thing that turned my life around, was actually going on this inner path. I didn't have anything outward to help me. I went on this path. I had an encounter with God in a real way when I was 18. I got knocked out by the power of God, and I was out in a trance for ages, and got up and was a completely different guy. And I from that day on, I hungered. I hungered like never before. I started to realize I was never going to find security and peace in the outward world and from people around me. I realized, even in The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, who teaches about how to build a deep, intimate connection between a man and a woman, he says that a man, never finds true love till he finds his soul mission and purpose and lives it with no fear of death. And a woman, her ultimate soul purpose is love, deep, deep love. And whereas a man is seeking love through his purpose. And he thinks he's searching it through a woman, but then the more his heart opens and he goes deeper with the feminine, he realizes it was never what he was searching, but he's always searching for God. It's one of the most profound chapters I've ever read in a book, either in the Bible or in the Bhagavad Gita or any of these. He basically says, but you realize that all along you were searching for God. And that hit me, you know, when I did Tantra, and I remember getting deeper with the feminine and able to build deeper emotional unions and connection where I'd feel a woman's thoughts towards me. I'd feel her love. I'd feel her emotional desire. I'd feel her sexual desire. I'd feel her mental desire for me. But I would notice that all that was really just a pathway back to God. And yeah, a few of you saying you resonate with that. Yeah, look, I think many here probably had that in their childhood. And I found that peace and that joy through that. I've never found it through people. People have now happened to come into my life to manifest and reflect what's happened in my inward path. I now have a great connection with Grace, you know, better than we ever had in marriage. You know, I've got a wonderful connection with Sammy. I've got a wonderful connection with my boys. And I don't see things anymore like this is my partner or this is my whatever. I just see this whole connection where we'll all have these interconnections in our lives that meet different needs and different desires. So the kingdom of heaven gets you so deep in your inward, and just see the world around you as the greatest forced awakening you'll ever get. And if you can almost sit there and laugh a bit and go, I think I've just spent the last 20, 30, 40 years of my life being a little bit of an idiot. It's had to get to this bad to finally wake me up. Okay, I am listening. God, I surrender, not my will, but yours. I don't know if anyone saw Forrest Gump, but I remember when that guy Dan, Lieutenant Dan, who lost his legs, and he had that night when he screamed at God and told him every name under the sun. But it said that day he made peace with God. And so he made peace. So this can be a day where you make peace with the world as your own projection. And this is what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. Why I love this one. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. And that's, Estelle, that made me think of what you said, that you hunger for more of his teaching and you will be filled. That's what it says here. For those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for you shall be filled. In other words, you'll be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. You can see universal law here everywhere happening, like the balancing of the charges. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I mean, this is the most passionate stuff. I love teaching about this, just as an aside. This stuff gets me more excited than almost anything. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I'll read that another way. And then blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets before you. I'll read that in another way. Blessed are you when people on social media, family members and friends revile you, to call you despicable, call you a conspiracy theorist, call you this, call you that, call you every name under the sun, where they exclude you from their company, as it says in Luke, where they shut you off, they cut their emotional connection off, they suck you from your job and say everything evil against you falsely for what you know to be your higher truth. Rejoice in that day when that happens and be glad, for great is your reward in the heavens. In other words, you've just filled your heavenly bank account up a lot. So when you give up something that's of great earthly importance to you for what's right and for your truth. So right now, if you live in Sydney and New South and Victoria, you're in a way in universal law in a better position than us in WA, because you have the greatest opportunity even ever to fill up your heavenly bank account, to do what's right, to just do what's right and do what's by your inner truth for no other reason that you will do it. And you will not bow to extortion. And you will just realize that everything that's happening around about you, as Yeshua said, the higher one loves their enemies and loves those things outside of themselves they can't control and shifts the energies within themselves. It's, in a way, you've got a greater opportunity than us right now in WA to do that, to really step up. There's a great crown for those who can do that, can be defamed on social media and have that evil. When people speak evil of me, I honestly rejoice. I love it. I start to laugh. And people who know me know about it. I just think it's funny. I just say, hey, have you seen what this person's saying about me? And we just laugh about it. And I just send them lots of love and then I kick them out of the group. It's great, you know. That's you start to really find your power and enjoy it. So they persecuted. So anyone in history who stood up for the truth and what is right generally gets persecuted. It's just part of universal law, part of the way things actually happen. So Sashi says, Matthew has been my experience this year. Thank you for bringing that perspective. Yeah, it helps you to own your shadows. These people help you to own that side of you, but you're not owning. It helps you to find your power. So I'm just going to break it up verse by verse. I'm not going to get through all of them today. I'm going to just go through a couple of them, 2 or maybe 3. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So I'm going to be intermingling between the slides in this book here by Yogananda, The Second Coming of the Christ. So this is a great mystical teaching by Yogananda, which from the Kriya Yogi. So poor, Yogananda says, means unattached to having any outward superficial elegance of spiritual wealth. No ostentatious display, but a humbleness of heart. In other words, it's so easy to get up and say, hey, I'm this, I'm a great guru, I'm that. But many of the greatest spiritual gurus on earth, they don't say a lot. They're quiet people. They don't even call themselves that name. They just get on with the job of serving and teaching the higher wisdom and the higher truth. They just get on with doing that. So it means unattached to having any outward superficial elegance of spiritual wealth. So Psalm 119, verse 37, and I know Grace loves, Psalm 119. It's the longest book in the Bible or chapter, but it says this. It says, turn my eyes away from beholding vain things and quicken me in your way. In other words, turn away my eyes from things that just aren't important in my life. It's like, turn it away. I remember when the first lockdown happened in WA earlier this year, I was more grief-stricken by one, it had come through without me seeing it happening. And I was grief-stricken by the fact it upset me so much and how much I was still attached to certain things in my society, in my civilization. And the prayer is, turn my eyes away from beholding vanity. It's a brilliant one. It's letting go, as Yogananda says, in your inner being of any desire for attachment to material objects and superficial friends, selfish human love. And that's not saying you can't enjoy those things. Weirdly enough, I lived a very lonely life in my teens, in my 20s, and I was craving love. I was searching love. I was always asking girls out. I was getting rejected. If they'd say yes to me, it would be a codependent, needy, clingy relationship that would end bad. I mean, that was my 20s, early 20s when Grace and I separated. I think my first couple of relationships were exactly like that. I was craving that connection, craving that love, trying to find it, looking for it outside of myself. And I remember the day I let go of all of that and I realized I didn't actually need it. I realized that I had everything within me. I remember that I could literally be there and be celibate and single and have the greatest connection and tantric union with the Divine Mother and with Mary Magdalene, with the higher Christ consciousness I could ever imagine. Interestingly, then I found that the feminine attracted to me more. I started attracting better, more higher caliber women, better energies into my life. I just found I lost interest in, as soon as I see any sign of a toxic feminine, I would just lose interest in them. Whereas previously they had this strange attraction for me that I almost couldn't get away from and didn't really know why. I would just have this strange attraction. I'm sure some of you can relate to me on that one. So the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It isn't talking about being a pauper financially. This is where many of the early churches and early Christians and early believers miss this. It's not saying to be a financial pauper. Yeshua never said that. In fact, he didn't really say an awful lot about money. He didn't really have a good or bad about it. The only thing he said was watch out that it doesn't prevent you from attaining the kingdom of heaven. And the more money you've got, he said, the harder it is to let go, which is true. I find that the clients who are most distressed right now, what's going on in the world, are the ones who are very rich as a rule. Many of the ones who've got a lot of possessions are attached to them. The ones who have less possessions and have nothing or the ones that are very wealthy but are well protected and will let go of it and are quite happy to give it all up tomorrow, they're fine with what's going on. So it's really about that. So it's just saying never settle for material possessions in substitution for spiritual abundance. Like never. Yes, I have a nice car which I drive in. I don't need a Porsche, that would annoy me. I've got a really nice Volvo and I'm getting a Land Cruiser so I can travel. You know, I live in a house which is near the beach right now in Coogee. I eat really good food. I like nice things around me. But am I attached to it? I've lived periods where I've had nothing at all. Grace and I at one stage went through quite a number of years. We literally had virtually no money. We were living day to day. We were living in the most poorest house you could possibly live in one of the poorest suburbs in Perth. We didn't even own the house. We were living in her mum's house, living in the spare room. And was I happy at that time? I was rapt. I was getting greatest spiritual insight of my life at that time. I had no financial cares. I was enjoying the challenges of being in 40-degree heat with no air conditioning in a hot house in a suburb well away from the beach. It was horrendous, but I liked the challenge. I saw it as a boot camp. I enjoyed it. And because of that now, I find that when things happen that I don't expect, they don't really bother me. And so the point is, it doesn't teach you to be a pauper, as this distracts you too, as Yogananda says. So if you are really financially struggling, this can distract you from your spiritual path just as much. So wise spiritual practices does also include a necessity for financial organization, for an expectation of financial abundance and to live really well, but never settle for material possessions where you put that first. Another way of putting it was, as Stephen Covey says in The 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person, the moment you start substituting, let's say you feel empty or you feel miserable or you feel unhappy or you feel scared, that you start substituting to try and fill that inner void, you go and buy a new car or you go and buy a new house and you upgrade your house for the sake of it. Or like I'm sure right now, the reason the property market's booming like crazy is people are shit scared and they're buying things to help distract them. So he's saying, don't ever let yourself do that. Don't ever do that. So enjoy, if you have material possessions, enjoy them, but never settle for them in substitution to fill an empty inner void. That was the whole message. So Yogananda says this. So I'll just go through this and then I'll read a bit from what he says. So there are many scriptures on the vanity of riches. So Yeshua said, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, some people get really caught up in that. Some people says he never meant that. Some people say that's a load of, I've even heard great spiritual teachers I've admired who've gone on about this just shows that Jesus spoke crap. Whereas for me, I always was able to see this very simply what he was saying. He never for a minute cast down wealth when you read the rest of his teachings. But he said, as soon as, when you actually understand the metaphor he was giving, the needle was actually a little gap in the wall. And the only way to move a camel laden with possessions or abundance through the needle was to take them all off, walk through, and then pick them up and bring them back through. So Yeshua was saying that the only way you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven and be wealthy is that you're able to let go of it. But then interestingly, the rich man would go back and get it and put it back on again. So the point is, it's not saying to live poor, quite the contrary. It's just saying that wealth can be a real hindrance because you can very easily fall into the trap of relying on that for security rather than relying on that inner spiritual practices. So the eye of the needle, unburdening your load, your attachments. That's all he was saying. So he also says, store up treasure in heaven, not earthly treasure, which can waste away. And again, what's Yeshua saying? He's saying at some stage in your life, your time will end. At some stage on planet Earth, your time will end. You will die, you will ascend without dying, whatever happens to happen to you. But at some stage, your life will end as you know it. And everything that you built up, you will not take with you. It stays here. So he says it will waste away. So for me, the earthly treasure I'm building is more for a legacy to pass on. The spiritual bank account is replenished by fulfilling dharmic duties and deeds. In other words, as we do this, The dharmic duty actually does that. It actually fulfills your needs. So do you want earthly riches or complete our path to go to the next stage of evolution? Where our treasure is, there is also our heart. And again, I'm emphasizing at no stage is Yeshua saying not to enjoy material possessions. What he's saying is this. He says, put your main focus. What's been very interesting, I'll share from my own experience to give you a practical example. I'm naturally, the accountant in me gets very focused on wealth building, financial investing. Do you know I've had more prosperity in the last 3 months since I just woke up one day and decided to give back en masse. I just decided to do it. And I started announcing webinars on knowing your lawful rights and giving away a lot more and giving away a lot of teaching. And went against what many of the marketing people have been telling me, but I just started giving away a lot because I thought Facebook give a lot away. They're free. Google is free. Wikipedia is free. And I've noticed that people, and I'm realizing that it's so true that God is no man's debtor. But universal law, when I'm giving a lot, it's like people, we've been getting more clients than ever. More people sign up. It's almost like people who've been given a lot of rich teaching from us, then almost feel like, you know what, I want to give back. I have people offer to give me a free massage or offer to give me this, or almost come and sign up as a client just so they can give back to us. So what Yeshua was saying is to store up treasure in heaven. In other words, doing a lot of deeds. I know in my past lives, I did some pretty shocking deeds. I've seen them. And so I'm really, really giving back, because every time I do a free webinar and I hear someone like Miko or Estelle say what they're saying here on this webinar, my heart gets touched and I feel, and I can see another cha-ching in my heavenly bank account. Someone else has been moved and been helped. When I see someone else on here who's got a big shift and they write to me thanking me, cha-ching. You know, my heavenly bank account is building up. It's building up. So this is the other thing he's talking about. The poor in spirit. He also, in Timothy, he says that rich people do good with their money. In other words, as you make money, do good with it. Find a way to really use it for good, like to do something great for society, to find some way to serve the state or region that you're living in. Balancing your dharma and karma all the time by giving. And that doesn't mean become overly altruistic, because then if you start giving away all the time, then you move out of balance in the other way and you build resentment. So it's important that as you're giving, you're receiving. That's why when someone comes and offers me, like, Warren, I'd love to give you a free massage or session to thank you, I go, yeah, thank you, I'll take it. I have clients sometimes say, oh, I just want to take you out and shout you the best dinner ever. I said, I'd love that, thank you. Because that's, I just see that that's the way of receiving back. And the other thing also is that karmic judgment awaits those who misuse riches. Now, again, it's less of a punishment. It's more reaping what you sow. If you put all your energy into building riches, you may succeed in it, but then you'll wake up and there'll be the weeping and gnashing of teeth that often happens, as it says in the scriptures and in the Gnostic teaching, because you go, why did I waste my time? So many people, I believe, in the afterlife grieve, and I've had visions of seeing that because they realize they didn't fulfill their dharmic duty and why they were sent, and they've got to go back all over again. Many people before their death go through that same experience. So more what this is saying here is that you always reap what you sow. If you put all your effort into putting riches, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're an evil person. It just means that you've got that. It just really means that you've got lessons still to be learnt, and there'll be the reaping of what you sow. And in all likelihood, you'll probably have to come back in your next lifetime and do a whole big dharmic duty giving. No doubt Mother Teresa in her past life probably was a major, or Gandhi were probably major people who put all their focus into self-interest at one stage. So they came back as a major giver. So the poor in spirit is not talking about finances. It really isn't. I mean, finances is something that is other scriptures I could teach you in prosperity, as I have taught you, but is an innate inner desire for prosperity that's God-given, and it's innately within us to be abundantly looked after. That's why I don't bother about food shortages, because the scriptures say in Psalm 37, it says, I've never seen the righteous, King David said, begging for bread. And I'm young, now I'm old. I've never seen the righteous begging for bread. I've always seen them abundant. Yeshua says in Matthew 6, he goes, you will be looked after. In the same way birds and sparrows get looked after, who fly around in the heavens and get really looked after, how much more valuable are you than birds and sparrows and flowers? You're much more valuable. Of course you'll be looked after. I mean, everyone in this webinar here today, you're valuable. You know, you're valuable to the divine Heavenly Father. You're valuable to the cosmic mother. You're divinely loved. You're divinely cherished. You know, the divine mother will never let you, her children, starve. I mean, some of you who are parents here, would you ever let your children starve deliberately? Would you ever deliberately want to put them through suffering to starve and hunger deliberately? Of course you wouldn't. You would do everything to make sure your children are abundantly taken care of. So how much more would your Heavenly Father and your divine cosmic mother do everything to make sure that if, for example, there was an unexpected truck shortage, to make sure that her children is looked after? You can rest assured in that. But we block ourselves off from our own good, as Charles Finney said. I can be trying to give you so much, and I've had people, I've tried so hard to help people who I love, and they just don't listen to me and don't want to hear it. I have a friend who has innate suffering in their physical body, severe back injuries, and I know how to fix that. I've gone through severe back problems and fixed it all. So when I hear people have got back issues, everything in me wants to help them, and I start helping them. They go, oh yeah, okay, thanks. And I can feel they're not listening and don't want to listen. So I go, okay. And how many of us are like that with the Divine Mother and Divine Father? The Divine Mother and Divine Father are reaching their hands out to bless you right now, to pour out their love, to say, rest assured, you have nothing to worry about. If you're in Sydney and New South Wales and Victoria and Queensland, this isn't for you. What you're hearing, that's for those who are kind of caught up in that belief system. That's not what I desire for you, my children. I desire to give you the best food, the best riches. I desire to nurture you, nourish you, fill you with love. But if you choose to say, I don't believe you, Mother, I don't believe you, Divine Father, I've been disappointed so many times, I've been hurt so many times, I've been whatever, I'm not listening. You know, I remember, and, you know, I'll share this, and I know Grace and I've been very open, but one of the most beautiful things that Grace, you know, shared with me, you know, after we, you know, divorced, she said to me, she had tears in her eyes and really touched me. And it's what I love about Grace, her, you know, her willingness to, she just said to me, you actually tried so hard to give me a lot of love, and I just kept turning you away because of bitterness in my heart towards men from relationships before you. She said, you tried so hard to give me love and I kept turning you back. I really just want you to know that. I know you tried hard, Warren. And that healed me a lot. You know, she healed me so much by what she said. Yeah, well, we all love Grace, Amanda. We really do. That's why I love Grace to bits, you know. She meant it. She said, I know you tried. And I do. I remember one time just before we ended, I said, you know, I said, I could tell you I loved you 100 times and mean it. And I said, and you would just glare at me and just push me away every time. And I just said to her, there's nothing I can do. And by her owning that with me, I've seen a huge shift in her now. She receives love easy. She gives love easy. She gives me a lot of love, you know, and I can see the love she's given with Steve Plummer and many people in this group, and helps heal you. So the point is that there's always, when you're poor in spirit and when you just let go of everything and just realize this, that there was a Divine Father and Divine Mother who deeply love you and are always there waiting to feel. You have no fear of food shortages. That's not for you. You'll be looked after. You'll be provided for. And don't listen to the fear mongers, you know. Listen to your mother and father who care about you. That's really the message I've got there. And Yogananda just says this about the poor in spirit. He says, Jesus let loose through his voice and his eyes his divine life force and higher vibration to teach his disciples, cause them to be calmly attuned and magnetized and able to receive. So Yeshua said that blessed, the word means, he says, means to be the bliss of heaven, supremely happy in all areas of life. He says, to be poor in spirit means you've really divested your inner being of all desire for inner attachment. You have opened yourself up to the riches of the eternal kingdom of wisdom and bliss, and therefore dwell in constant communion with God and his saints. And he says, people who are materially rich may be poor in inner spiritual development if wealth gorges their senses, while those who are materially poor, who've simplified the outer conditions of their life to make time for God, will garner spiritual riches and fulfillment that no treasury of gold could ever buy. So, yes, he says, when the spirit of a man or woman mentally renounces desires for objects of this world, knowing them to be illusory, perishable, misleading, and unbecoming to the soul, he begins to find true joy in acquiring permanently satisfying soul qualities, and he inherits the lost kingdom of immortality and being blessed. So hopefully this is soul food for all of you in this one here. The kingdom of heaven is for the poor in spirit, those who've just let go of everything and who are willing to take the lowest place. I really admire people who do that, because in the world today, I rarely see that anymore. People want to strive to the top. People want to be the center show. People, very, very few people. I even noticed on our Telegram groups, how many people just come and, you know, break rules and just put things on. And, you know, it's so few people even come and just say, you know, really ask permission, or just say, I just want to understand the group and just help me to understand how I can contribute. And I admire people like that, because the poor in spirit means you take that lowest place. Many of the greatest spiritual giants I've ever met are people who are just the very quietest people. My Aunt Leslie and Uncle Graham, you know, never people who people would even hear about. You never would have heard of, you know, Leslie Hewitt as anyone. You know, she wasn't a great person on the outward, but she served so many people in Cambodia. She spent so many hours with me in the quietness, teaching me the kingdom of God when I was a teenager and so unsure of myself, accepting me when my own family were telling me I was a radical fruitcake and I should just calm down and stop, you know, teaching radical stuff. And she'd quietly say, don't you listen to your family, Warren? She said, the kingdom of God is within you, son. That's what she'd always say to me. She just said, she goes, I'd rather you be radical for the kingdom of God than radically getting drunk on alcohol every week like the rest of the world is doing. And she'd say that to my mum and stick up for me. And then my mum would quieten down and leave me alone. So there are many great spiritual people are the ones who serve quietly in the background. That mother who serves her children and teach them the ways, the higher truths and the ways. They're some of the greatest spiritual giants on this planet right now. And that leads to Matthew 5:4. You know, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now, someone who's a Cancerian might go, oh, awesome. When I cry all the time, that means I'm blessed. Well, not necessarily. Mourn, any Cancerians here? You probably think that you're particularly blessed now after hearing this. But mourn is not encouraging depression or earthly sorrow or unhappiness. It's talking about the divine sorrow which comes as a soul awakens to its separation from source, from God, and yearns to reconnect and be reunited with the eternal beloved. That's from Yogananda. I hope you all love that as much as I do. So it's not saying that if you're depressed or you're walking around all the time like wearing rags and sackcloth like many would do. It's that deep sorrow, that yearning, as you just start to realize, I just want to come home. I know Grace and I talk about this one all the time. You know, Grace always feels this yearning to go home. She tells me, because she knows she's not of this world. I'm the same. I'm not of this world. I've been sent from a higher place to serve this planet and do a work and complete this work. So I'm always yearning for home in my heart, always yearning for home. And I've realized, though, that the more that I've connected to the kingdom of God, the more I feel connected permanently to home now. My mourning is less than it was before now. But that mourning, it's like the divine sorrow which comes as we realize how separate we are from source, how separate our society is from the kingdom of God, how far away our consciousness is when we go, what the heck has happened to our country that we can have what's happening in New South Wales and Victoria? What on earth has happened within our hearts and souls? What must we do to make this right? You know, what must we do to fix this and make this right? And that's why we feel so lonely here, yeah. And that's why it's great when our soul family comes together. I'm sure that's why many of you come here each week, because that was the original purpose of the church, is to bring the soul family of the higher beings together who are here to serve on earth, to have intimate connection with one another, to encourage one another and help each other by building each other to stand firm in the midst of a society that is in darkness, that is really in darkness. I mean, Christ wrote an amazing scripture on all this about how dark things really, really are. When you actually read John 1, which I know is one of Grace's absolute favorites, so she'll love me for reading this one. But it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But I love this here. It says, all things were made by him, and without him nothing was made that was made. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness couldn't comprehend it. In other words, the darkness of humanity's grief and sorrow, of humanity's anger, of humanity's bitterness, of humanity's darkness of the soul and consciousness. And he said, it says he came unto his own received him not, but as many as received him, he gave the power to become the sons of God, even to those who believe in his name. But these words are so profound here. And the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness could not comprehend it. And we can see this here again when we read the book of Ephesians, when in Ephesians chapter 4, written by Master Paul, a profound teacher of the Christ teachings, he said, don't walk anymore as the rest of the world do in the futility of their mind. What we're seeing happening in the world around us, all worked up on social media, talking about trucking strike, talking about this, talking about that, talking about the army coming in. He said, don't walk like that. He said, they had their understanding darkened. They're separate from the life of God. They're not even close to it because of the ignorance in them, because of the blindness and the shut-offness of their heart and their refusal to embrace all the teachings of Eckhart Tolle over the years, of Wayne Dyer, of The Secret, of Jim Rohn, of John D. Martini, of Buddha, of Christ, of all the great teachers who've been sent, because they refuse to listen to these people. This is why New South Wales, Victoria, West Australia, wherever we are, is in this mess, because we refuse to listen. We chose to be in darkness. We wanted to live in our sensuality. We wanted to live in our superficial world where material possessions and net worth was our status symbol. We wanted to live in a world where we can travel whenever we feel like it, and it's our divine right. We wanted to live in a world where we could go and drink alcohol and get drunk and beat someone up because that's our divine right. And he says here, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lasciviousness, which means complete unrestraint, essentially, to work all uncleanness with greediness. So he says, don't walk that way. Don't live that way, Paul was saying to his disciples. He said, because you never learned Christ this way. He said, if you were taught properly, he says in verse 21, you're going to put off the old way of life. You're going to put off the old way of thinking. You're going to renounce that. You're going to walk away from it today because you know it's corrupted according to deceitful, sensual lust where we're living by a earthly connection or attachment, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. And that you put on the new man or the new man, the new divine man, the new higher self, the new oversoul, the new Christed consciousness, which is created in righteousness and holiness, a set apartness. Holiness just means to be set apart. It means to be, you're set apart from the things of the world. You're set apart from the way of life. You're set apart from this whole fear mongering about what's going on in the world. You're set apart from getting caught up in these protests. That's why it says, put away lying, speak your truth. That's why everyone's getting masked up, because people lie. They don't speak their truth. They stay silent. They shut up. They give bullshit to people. They give bullshit to their family. They don't tell them how they feel. They don't tell them when we feel angry. So everyone speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Don't be angry anymore. And when I say angry, don't sin in your anger. In other words, anger is good when it's really you voicing your fury, what's going on, but don't sin in your anger. Don't repress it, or don't let it turn into ways that will hurt other people. Let not the sun go down on your wrath. I always have this rule with relationships, like when I've been seeing a girl, that my rule is that the sun will never go down on her wrath. And as soon as it does, I don't trust them anymore. So in other words, I'll never go to bed with anything unresolved. That's my rule with someone I'm intimately close with. I won't do it. So need to give place to the devil. In other words, give place to that lower mind or that lower way of thinking. So there's some really great wisdom in here. And that's why he said, blessed are those of you who mourn. And as Yogananda says, those who crave and seek to the point of deep pain and heart grieving shall find comfort in the revelation and connection they'll experience in the Christ of soul, their spirit. This contrasts with a resentful attitude to the challenges one experiences, instead crying out for divine aid outside ourselves rather than going within. In other words, God, please kill Daniel Andrews tomorrow. God, please strike Gaius with leprosy and eczema. You know, it's like, God, help us, open our hearts up, lead us more closer to you, help us see a different perspective, raise us up strong within us. Let us know who we are in the higher being. Let us know the power of Christ that we have within us to change these circumstances, to know that we're always abundant and we always look after that kind of stuff. Yogananda says, like an adorably naughty baby seeking connection with Christ. Christ just looks at you and goes, you know what? I'm sure we've met naughty kids and we just can't help. We laugh them and give them a big hug. I mean, I love Josiah, my 15-year-old. He just makes me laugh when he goes, no, I'm a bum. I don't do anything. I love his honesty, and all of our family giggle when he speaks on the youth investment in the teenagers group, and all the youth share their purposes and what they're going to do and how they're going to go to the next level. When Joe's asked, he goes, I don't know, I'm not doing anything. How will you change that? Don't know. So what are you going to do about it right now? Nothing. Keep playing games and being a bum. And that's literally what he will say. And so blessed are those who mourn, because they're craving that separation from source. Interestingly, as an aside, I noticed that because I let Joe be that way, when we do catch up and talk, and we don't see much of each other, but when we catch up, we're best friends, which fucks with all of my family's head. He actually says to me, yeah, I am seeking something. I just don't know what yet. So blessed are those who mourn. Meeting this mourning or this sadness or emptiness or any emptiness that many of us feel through addictions, through lots of wild sex all the time, through lots of food, lots of alcohol, through watching TV all day, or material fulfillment will only keep bringing back grief and sorrow when these things inevitably fade away in life or death. That's why Yeshua says in Luke, woe to those who spent their life focusing on material attachment and who are now satisfied, for they shall sorrow later on with wailing and deep regret for the opportunity they missed. And that's why he said, many shall have weeping and gnashing of teeth. In Luke chapter 6, this is what he says here. He says, woe to you who are rich, for you've received your consolation. In other words, who've made that your focus and your fulfillment to make you feel satisfied. Woe to you who are full now on this earth, for you shall hunger. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall weep. Woe unto you when men speak well of you, because you say all the right things on social media, because you do really good commercials to promote lockdowns, the jabs, as that wonderful speech from Andrew Bogut, the basketball wazzer this week. If any of you saw that, where he openly got up and said, I've been offered money to get up and promote and support the lockdowns and the jabs, and I'm not doing it. He said, I'm financially looked after, but he said, I refuse to do that when my fellow man is suffering. And all I thought was, the kingdom of God is nigh to you, Andrew Bogut. That was my first thought. You know, the kingdom of God is very nigh to you right now when you're talking like that. He's getting it, the kingdom of heaven, because he happily and he willingly renounced fame. No doubt he probably will be locked out of many movies and many opportunities he otherwise would have had. Mel Gibson had cost him his Hollywood career by doing The Passion of the Christ. But he just says the best thing he ever did when he did that and taught about Christ. So woe to you when men speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets. So woe to you that are full, for you shall hunger. So this is the teachings of Christ on a higher level. And he says, so you're mourning for the separation from God, from source, knowing you strayed, and you're desiring to come home. And it's a beautiful one here. I have strayed like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commands. I mean, I love that one. I know, Grace, that's one of your favorites, if I remember rightly, where I have strayed like a lost sheep. You know, seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commandments. That one often makes me cry, that one. Yeah, whenever I've gone off track in my life, it's always been my prayer. You know, I've strayed like a lost sheep. Yeah, I'm crying too, don't worry, Estelle. You know, seek me. In other words, don't give up on me. Don't give up on me just because I fucked up and I've been a negative dick this week and I've just missed my path. And there's been many times in my life where I've had to pray that prayer where I've just missed it. I've got caught up in anything and everything. And I went off my path. And some of you heard my experience in 2018 with the Council of Nine when I had that visitation that changed my life forever. And that was really what happened. I believe that was about the fact that all my life I'd prayed that because I'd gone way off track by that time. And that's what I was told. Come back to the way, come back to the path, come back to what you're called to do, to serve and to teach. And to help and do the work you've been sent to do. So seek your servant, for I've not forgotten your commandments. In Isaiah 65, he talks about this as well, a brilliant little passage of scripture where he talks about the fact that those who make the earth securities, that's why all I would say to people when people say, well, what about the fact I can't travel? And I'll say, so you're trying to tell me you've never had a period of a few years in your life when you haven't been able to travel. I said, who cares? Who cares if you can't go to restaurants for a time? It doesn't matter. I said, yeah, I will fight and do everything I possibly can to keep living my way of life as normal, shifting consciousness, getting every exemption I can. Those of you know that when the mask rules came over here, I just went and looked, read the exemptions and went on with life as normal. Haven't done a census, didn't wear masks, didn't vote, didn't do any of that stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I'll continue to go to restaurants as normal. If for whatever reason that happens, not important, you know, it'll be for a time and a season, and these seasons will come to an end. And that's why it says, those of you who seek to hold on to what you've got, Yeshua said, you will lose it. He said, those of you who try to hold on to what you've got, you will eventually lose it. So he says here, for behold, I create a new heaven and a new earth, and the former shall not remembered, nor even come to mind. In other words, there's a new heaven and new earth, and that starts within us. Even before we see a golden age or age of Aquarius, the golden age, the age of Aquarius happened to be in us first. So as I said, I've already entered a golden age. I'm actually in the beginnings of my golden age, of my own age of Aquarius. I'm living it now. I'm teaching as the age of Aquarius. I'm living in a constant, daily, continual soul nourishment and energetic nourishment by people around me, by the Holy Spirit, by the Divine Mother, the Divine Father. I'm seeing business grow. I'm seeing influence grow. I'm seeing prosperity grow. I'm seeing the favor of God. I'm living the golden age now and so all of you can start the age of Aquarius today. Eleanor says, I love the gentleness and emotions you're not afraid to show. That's what being human is about. Yeah, look, I had a huge problem, Eleanor, showing weakness because my bullying growing up and the way and the issues I had with my mum and the few times I'd open up and be vulnerable with her and I'd be assassinated, so to speak, I grew this deep dislike for the feminine and vulnerability and for crying. And when I was able to release that and let go of the fear of being weak and being seen as weak and realizing and just sharing and being vulnerable, I noticed that my ability to be strong increased. I find that by being gentle, being soft and crying a lot and being vulnerable gives me the power that when I'm vicious and need to be, when people come in our group and start putting up negative stuff and I feel the fear hitting the people, the shepherd within me desires to protect the sheep and I just attack. And that's why I kick people straight out who are continually fear-mongering within the group. And I actually do that to protect the consciousness of the group and look after the responsibility which I've been given. So you find when you show that softness, and you allow that weakness to come forth within you, you'll cry more, you'll feel it more, but that strength will come out more. When you see someone getting up on Facebook and trying to coerce someone into something that's going to hurt their body, you will just hit them with such a viciousness, they will be in shock, as will you. And it won't be like this, like human viciousness, it'll be a spirit viciousness. There'll be this heart bluntness, like, how dare you? Who do you think you are coming around and saying this to people? And I noticed that sometimes I get disappointed on social media because I'm wanting people to debate with me and they're not, they're too scared to, because I just hit them very, 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 very hard when I see people are doing stuff that's going to hurt people. So this is what Isaiah says, you know, we're creating a new heaven and a new earth, and the former things won't be remembered nor even come to mind. In other words, it will be like it never even existed. It says it'll be like it never even existed. And I love this one here. And he even says, it shall come to pass before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. And that's one of the greatest secrets of manifestation. When you let go, you're amazed at the blessings that start to hit your life. The Tao, as Grace said before, do nothing and it shall be done for you. All I know is that I'm looked after. All I know is I'm a protected species. While I'm doing my path and I'm a child of God. And you start to realize and know that none of this affects you. It really doesn't. You truly are special. And that's why it's a good thing to own the narcissist within you. As Steve said, what I learned, it's a good thing to own that narcissist, because then you know you are special. You really, really are. And before we end today and we do the integration and share our lessons, I'll share a final message. The man who sought God's house. And this is based on a story of a Swami. So a Swami made it his mission to go on a quest to find God's house and go home to God. The Swami went over hills, over vales, over valleys, over mountains, went through various difficulties, went through to fight off bears, lions, and scorpions. And then as he came over a mountain, he could see in the distance this house. And something in him knew that this house, he'd come to the end of his journey. And he kept walking. And as he got closer to the house, he saw a sign saying, this is the house, this is God's house, or you are welcome. He walked up to the house. He looked at the house and looked at the knocker. He put up his hand, went to knock. He stopped. He turned and he sprinted as fast as he could without looking back and kept running as far into the mountain until he could no longer see the house. The Swami says, still to this day, I'm seeking God's house. My biggest fear now is that I will find it. In other words, sometimes finding that place of stillness and that place of knowing we're provided for can be scary. It's easy to be caught up in the drama. It's easy to be caught up in our emotions. It's easy to go on social media and get caught up with everyone talking about truck driver strikes or whatever else. Me, as I'm learning more and more, the safest place is in God's house and in God's family, right within my own heart, right with everyone around me who thinks the same way, and being really, really connected to my divine Father, my divine Mother, and being in the house of God and just being home and not being in any way involved in any of that reality. So now, any questions or thoughts? And let's just share our greatest lessons and what you will take in your life out of this. So you can take the mic, you can type it in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Warren?
Hi, Antonia.
Hi. I'd love to say something that really came out of what you've been saying. Thanks so much for everything. It's so powerful. One of the things I realised was that when I was trying to sort of accept the fears and sort of look at them so I could surrender all of those fears, I actually couldn't actually see something different. So in surrendering it, I realised that I need to be able to see a new reality as well, if you know what I mean. It was like, what if I'm afraid of something that's going to happen? Like, say, let's just say, for example, you know, one of the big things for me was the military coming in and jabbing. And I couldn't actually see that the possibility and the reality that it's not going to happen. So that was really big. I don't know what that was, but it was a very interesting realization that I had. It's like I need to be able, I actually got to a point where I could stop seeing the good. Like that's why I've been sitting in so much grief and so much fear. That was great. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. That's lovely to hear, Antonia. And like I said, touches my heart.
Yeah. Me too. I feel like crying. It's really deep. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
Well, my pleasure. You can cry as much as you want.
Yeah, thanks.
Estelle, I've cleared my fears and returned to the teachings of God, and I feel very free. Being in acceptance of others' choices, setting me free. Yeah, isn't it great when you just accept others' choices, that people have that right? And really honor them. If you want the same choice back, then to honor people's choices, Estelle, it's so good. Daniela, I've always said someone has looked out for me in my life, and I feel to go back to trusting the divine. It happens for a reason, so I'm grateful for sharing all this. That's great, Daniela. Antonia, oh my God, this huge resonates to the core. Sashi, I've been running from God's house. Yep. I think many people can relate to that. Eleanor was hurt many times because of being soft, emotional, gentle, but able to stand my ground. Yeah, so you're learning to trust yourself, Eleanor. That's what I learned. I mean, people could hurt me if I gave them that power, but I don't. I mean, people still say nasty things about me and try to bully me, but I'm comfortable in my own power to share back and don't take it personally. So has anyone else got any things that they've learned or would like to share?
Warren, can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Who's this?
Oh, cool. Suzanne from Queensland.
Oh, hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm actually out in regional Queensland, away from all the mayhem, so I feel quite good with hugging my tree. It's about 7 hours drive from Brisbane.
Up north? North Queensland?
No. Go northwest of Brisbane. It's north of Roma, out in cattle country.
Okay, yep.
So it's quite pleasant out here. My thing this week was I've lost a lot over the last 10 years, a husband, a father, a house, and quite a few other things, a family as well. But my thing, I thought that I had given up because I've lost so many material possessions and all sorts of other things. And I thought I was quite happy in my life and able to handle all the bits and pieces, until I started reading about what if the planet actually went into lockdown, or what if the planet no longer existed and we were suddenly all picked up and taken somewhere else. And I began to feel a loss, thinking, my gosh, all the little things that I've accumulated and the little things that I have around me. And for some unknown reason, a sewing machine, which is in a box, never been opened, never used. And I suddenly missed not being able to use the sewing machine. And as I thought to myself, if I died tomorrow or today or in the next minute, the sewing machine is going to be totally useless anyway. And if we do get taken to another planet or another space or taken home or whatever, I can actually I now realize that I can leave quite happily, because I've suddenly let go the material possessions that I've got around me, even though I thought I had. But now, yes, I really have let them go. And I just feel so, I guess I'm hiding within my heart and feeling the love there, the caressing, the beauty, the love, the everything that goes with being with spiritual people, with soul family, and knowing that I will always be looked after, and that my next major mission will be far better than the one that I'm currently on. So with that, I actually feel more free with my life and closer to Yeshua, who I've followed for a very, very, very long time.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for that, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Warren,
it's. Oh, sorry.
No, you go. No, you finish, Suzanne. You're right.
No, all I was going to say was that I am very lucky because I live on a cattle property, and I do live away from all the shenanigans that's going on. I don't have a television. I turn the radio off, and the freedom that I get, the love that I get, usually comes from the animals, the birds, hugging the trees, and just being by myself, because I'm actually quite happy within myself, because I know that I've got God within, so I'm never alone. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. And Steve, what would you like to say?
Yeah, so I just wanted to share something, Warren. I was reading this morning, it was channeled through a lady on social media, a message from the Arcturians, and it really aligns actually incredibly with what Suzanne just said, but also just a commentary from them about what's going on. So I'll just quickly read it. It says, "Greetings, we are here. This is a peculiar time in your history here on Earth. For while all of the Earth is getting lighter and brighter, the chaos in your news has become louder and louder. What are you to think of this? We point out to you that there is a great divide. The light is bursting through, but you are all concentrating on the last vestiges of darkness that is clinging to your Earth. Oh yes, this chaotic drama is like a great illusion. It is trying to tempt you to cast your eyes downward and not look at the light. We advise that you separate yourself from this discord, for it will not do you any good to dwell upon it. Look to the light, for it is getting brighter. Turn off your TV, put down your devices, and sit a little while in nature where you can be comforted and inspired. For the sun, the stars, the moon, the light, the joy, and the laughter are there to guide you. The animals chatter to you and tell you to look up, for there is much to see in your world and it is expanding. Leave the dark, the muddled, the chaos behind you. It has nothing to do with you anymore. It is merely an echo from an earlier time. It is an echo that will be fading fast. The quicker you stop looking at it, the quicker it will fade for you. So keep your eyes straight ahead upon your own individual journey. Rejoice with the stars and smile at the moon, for they are smiling back at you and beckoning you forward. Come, dear child of light, play with us and come with us on your beautiful future, where you will shine like we do, but will shine with the light of 1,000 suns. The animals and the plants rejoice and they spur you along. Come with us, dear friend, and play with us in the 5th dimension, for that is where you long to reside. The clouds and the waves reach out to you. Feel the forces of nature, for they speak to you insistently, and they throb around you like a second pulse deep in the center of your heart. Can you hear those forces throbbing in a cadence about you? Join us, they call. We are here. We are here. And I just thought that was very aligned to that message of looking inward and sovereignty within, and not having attachments to the outside world and finding answers within us, but also from nature. So I just wanted to share that message. I thought it was really aligned with what you were teaching today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. No, there's a lot of good comments that come through here too. So let me just have a quick look at some of these. So it says, yeah, so Sharon, stop battling personal injustice and taking the softer approach and opening up great personal interactions. That's great. Yep, Amelia, connect me more with my heart and forgive the evil in me and accept it. Yeah, that's really profound, Amelia. That's exactly it. That's what Joseph Murphy says. He says, it's the inner evil and accusation and extortion that you're doing to yourself. So when you're seeing the extortion and coercion going on around you, know that you're actually doing a lot of extortion to yourself. You're coercing yourself. I mean, how many people in society today are not living their deepest heart's truth in their life, in their business, in the work that they're doing, in their family, staying in a marriage they don't want to be in, being in the business that they hate, having a job they want to leave but are too scared to make sure they keep paying the mortgage to keep their family happy. I love what Steve said today. It really touched my heart. I mean, I give Steve shit, but the fact he was able to do what was right for him, that was profound. For knowing Steve, that's a big step for Steve to have made, to actually do that, to do what was true for him. And if I know with my own kids, I would often say to them, like when I buy food, I'd always say, seeing as I'm paying for it, I get the best choice. And a lot of people would always say, you know, they give their best to their kids. I'm like, no, I give best for me. I said, I've earned the money. I mean, you get the rest. That's my truth for them, the narcissist in me. And,
yeah, the narc comes out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would always buy the best thing first. And not surprisingly, as Steve, you probably know, all my kids have no trouble owning their narcissists and expecting to be looked after.
Oh, hell no. The chips off the old block, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Can I add to that, Warren?
Sure.
Yeah, it was really interesting what you just said, because many, many years ago, I did a personal development course. And one of the first things that they brought up as an example was, if you're preparing food for your family or for a group of people, do you give like the best looking plates to the guests or to your family? And at that time, I said, yes, of course, that's what I used to do. And then it occurred to me that I thought, well, hang on a sec. It's all about loving yourself as well. I mean, you're saying it's being narcissistic, but I actually think it's about loving and honoring yourself too. And that was just the same experience that I had then. I just thought I might share that.
Oh, thank you.
There?
Well, yeah. I was just getting for myself.
No, because I keep cutting out. I can't tell if I'm still on or not.
No, look, it's all good. I call it a narcissist too, because narcissism is healthy, because narcissism means self-love is what it actually means.
Yeah.
That's all it is, really.
Yeah, that's it. It's perfect. That was funny. Nice story.
It actually goes to my Leo. No, I'm actually not. I'm well, depends. In Vedic, I'm an Aries. In Western, I'm a Taurus, but I think I'm definitely the Aries. And my moon is Cancer, and my rising is Gemini. So yeah, I'm an Aries. I've been told I like to dominate and rule, which is pretty true. No, it's good. I love that. So yeah, look, putting yourself first. That's just such a powerful thing when you can do that, and it also teaches kids. Like I reckon that when kids end up in abusive relationships, they've normally learnt that from their parents. You know, they just basically see their parents constantly giving up their power. So I would encourage any one of you who's a parent and you've got young kids, for the sake of teaching your kids by example, not by what you say, honor yourself and empower. And if you ever have a toxic situation that doesn't work for you, you always would just, do that first and let go of it, because that's what we're teaching our kids, and teaching your kids to be empowered. So thank you. Yeah, there's so many nice comments here. I mean, Grace, to finish off, what would you like to share? Anything for you to finish off with before we complete today?
I've got my hands wet. I was actually doing the dishes while listening to everybody. No, I just want to say that it's all I can say is it's served me so well, Warren, being a narcissism, because we have this idealism of a utopia society, that everything's great and wonderful and beautiful, and butterflies and birds are flying everywhere. But the reality is, being a narcissist is actually very, very healthy, because goodness me, how many of us have really listened to other voices, being taught what we've been taught, told being what to do, how to do it, when to do it, being on a time schedule, and everything set for us. So being a narcissist, I just want to say that find your voice. It's all about finding your voice, finding your truth, and that if someone does speak into your life, then you can discern and check out whether it resonates with you or not. There's so many rescuers of us, when you look at it, how many charitable donations has been created over hundreds of years, and the fight for poverty, the fight for hunger, it's still here today. So if we look at it and start looking at ourselves, really that's truly inward journey. When you say truly inward journey is going inside of yourself. We are alone, even though we might be with our loved ones, soulmate, twin flame, whatever your beliefs are. At the end of the day, you still are alone under your skin. No one else is journeying with you. And so practice narcissism, and obviously there is an unconditional love that involves in that. But then again, unconditional love is, you love yourself first, and then you love others. Because how else are you going to love others if you don't love yourself? It's pure and simple. It's really simple as that. So that's just, that's just what I want to end it with, Warren.
Great. No, thank you, Grace. Yep. No, it's owning it within you. I agree. So hopefully all of you are going to go away. And the biggest encouragement I give you all before you leave is just really go in and just see everything that happens around you as an expression of what's happening within you, and see it as a chance to shift things. So see this as right now, this is the greatest opportunity you're ever going to have to shift things at record pace. My guess is, I'm sure Grace would agree with me, there's probably angels and beings in other dimensions and galaxies who are really envious of us, because we have such an opportunity to fast track our karma and fast track our lives and our soul evolution right now by being in this environment. And they're like, why are you guys not saying that?
They really are, because they're in those entities, the archangels, they don't actually have the privilege of going through emotions like we all go through. They don't have ego, that they don't experience. They just look at us and wonder, wow.
Yeah, so they know we've got an opportunity to shift things so much faster and evolve and rule over them. And they're like, God, these people are lucky. I mean, why are they whinging about it?
Miko wants to be an angel. Is it because you can fly or with wings?
You chose this path, Miko. Sorry, mate. You chose this path and you chose to implement here because you were like, nah, screw this. I do want to actually shift and grow. You just didn't realize what you signed up for, but I hate to tell you, but you signed up for it.
At the end of the day, you have to be a masochist to walk this path. That's the reality. Is you have to be a masochist to walk this path. And it's an honor. It's actually an honor. When we go through our whirlpool and our vortex of circumstances, it might not look it, but you know, look at us. Look at the. We wonder when the volcano erupts. We wonder when cyclone happens and the tornadoes. Even people chase the eye of the cyclone, and yet we avoid our stuff. And how magnificent are we as a human body? What happens through us, through our emotions, through everything that we go through and experience.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And go and enjoy this week and be a light to your city wherever you are. And I'll see you all next week and during the week.